Hey, kids, how are you? Welcome, one and all. May I be the first to say a good afternoon. It's just past high noon, 12:04 to be precise. My name is Matt Murphy, and this is the Matt Murphy Radio Show on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Happy to have you with us. Thank you for being here. Pleasantries all around. It is Wednesday, July 19th, 2023. It's our episode 379 on this cheer radio station. Happy to have you with us, whether you're listening on the 100,000-watt FM signal that's all throughout the state of Tennessee, southern Kentucky, and northern Alabama. Maybe you're listening online, a streaming platform of your choosing, or if you're watching on Talk TV, where, according to Mason Fleming, no frogs were harmed in the making of this production. Although we do have a continuation of a theme behind me on the whiteboard. So you can go ahead and look at that because it is raining, and it's been raining, and it will continue to rain. Started last night and just on throughout, and I have no idea when it's expected to stop. I guess I should probably know that if I bring it up, but I'm no meteorologist. But it is raining currently, and I ain't saying it's flooding, but it is, well, when I was on the way in, the guy with the boat and the animals, yeah, that was happening. So we'll make way to 3 o'clock and hand off to Brian Wilson at that time. Live and local, information-fueled and opinion-driven News Talk Radio on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Happy to have you with us. 615-737-9986. Now, I want to give you that number as a super text number because apparently our phone lines are down currently. Maybe lightning, who knows what. A lot of electronic equipment around here, so do not call. If you call, we will not be able to put you on air. But you can super text us, and you're invited to do so. Like 4813 has done. Hey, Matt, love the show. I need to press you on a topic. I've not read this text, and it's lengthy, so this should be good. It's from Brandon. Let's just start off the show this way. I've got plenty of things to talk about. We're going to do this, though. Hey, Matt, love the show. I need to press you on a topic. Perhaps it's beating a dead horse. Well, beating a dead horse is more fun than you think. That's what the great Ludlow Porch used to say. Because he's dropped out. But this goes to your credibility. I was talking with my girlfriend about Jim Gingrich and you calling him a liar. She did not hear the segment, so it was all my bad memory. We pulled up the ad to listen to it, the ad you played on the radio. In the ad, he states money like this. Like, to me, is very deceptive, very dishonest, but he doesn't actually say to use this money. So it seems like calling him a liar is going a bit far, over-exaggerating to make a point. Could you please explain, are there other ad examples to make your case? Or can you explain your case further? Thank you for your time. Brandon, I'm happy to do so. You are correct. It is a slick political trick to use the term like. For those who missed the show yesterday, I can pull up the ad and I can play it for you. Now, Jim Gingrich is out of the race, and you're correct, Brandon, that most of this doesn't matter. But here's the deal. He knows what the type of money. If he's saying money like this, he's talking about a revenue bond, right? It's not money coming out of the general fund, and he knows that. It is money let on a revenue bond. You borrow money, you borrow $100 million, you pay a low interest rate, and the revenues generated from the operation of the racetrack pay that money back over 30 years. So to say that I would use money like this. You're saying I would use money like this revenue bond for police, and you can't use a revenue bond to pay police officers, firefighters, and whatever else he said, school safety or whatnot. So, no, I stand by it. Jim Gingrich knew, and the point is this, Brandon, and I understand, but the point is this. Jim Gingrich knew exactly what he was saying. He knows that he can't use revenue bond money from the racetrack renovation to pay police officers. But he wanted you to walk away. He intentionally wanted you to walk away from that commercial. And politicians do this all the time, and it grates my nerves. He's talking to stupid people. Or he's talking, I won't say that. Let me take that back. He is talking to ignorant people. Or trying to talk to ignorant people. Smart people see through it. And I know you're all smart people. You're the smartest listening audience on planet Earth. So I know that it's harsh to call him a liar. Many people shrink away from that type of language. I do not. I think we need to call these politicians out. And yes, Jim Gingrich did lie. He said something that he knew not to be true at the time that he said it. He said we would use money like this revenue bond money. He didn't say that part, but he knows that's what it is. He omits that to try to connect these two issues where there is no connection to these two issues. In other words, he wants you to believe that because Nashville is planning on renovating the Fairgrounds Speedway, that police officers are not going to get paid because they're using money for that. That's not true, and he knows it's not true. He also knows that it's not true that you can take money from the fairgrounds and sink it back over into schools or police officers or affordable housing. Not true. So I hope that makes sense to you. I stand by my statement. Jim Gingrich put that ad together with the intention of lying and deceiving the people of Davidson County. Lying to and deceiving the people of Davidson County into believing that instead of using money for police officers or affordable housing, Nashville was using money for a stadium or, in this case, a racetrack. And then he compared the two other deals, the stadium deal and the racetrack deal. I mean, the bottom line is this. Gingrich came in, brought his company here. It's my understanding he took a lot of advantages of tax abatements offered to him and his company to settle in Nashville. I hope his company's done very well. I just find it shameful that after you 5 or 6 or 8 years ago take what I heard was, and I don't know this figure to be accurate, so I'll say this from the jump. What I have been told from a reliable source that I trust is that Gingrich's company got up to $112 million in tax abatements when he moved the company to Nashville. I've not confirmed that figure with Jim. I think it's interesting that the rules are for thee and not for me. We're going to change the rules if I'm mayor in order to prevent things like the fairgrounds. So I hope that makes sense to you, Brandon. If not, I mean, maybe that's satisfactory. If it's not satisfactory, well, so be it. Speaking of the Nashville mayor's race, we're going to have a candidate for mayor on the show today. We're trying to cover this like the morning dew. Make sure that you're well aware if you live in the metro Nashville area. And even if you don't, I mean, well, even if you do not live in Davidson County, even if you are not voting, the communities around Nashville are dramatically affected by the Nashville leadership. I think you would agree with that Mount Juliet and Hendersonville and Sumner County and down in Franklin and Columbia, these are areas that are affected by how Nashville is governed. No question. And Nashville needs to be governed wisely, more broadly, to make sure that the politicians in the General Assembly don't start coming after your cash dollars when the tourism money dries up. You got to understand that tourism matters. People coming into this community and spending their money into the community matters more broadly. As Nashville goes, it is often said, so goes the state. I don't know that that's necessarily true. And I understand that many of you kind of thumb your nose at the city, but I do think it matters greatly. Alice Rowley will join us just after 1 o'clock. I have come to like her campaign. I have come to appreciate it. I'm on record as saying I'm not voting in the race. No offense to my good friend Natisha Brooks, who I think is a staunch conservative. But Alice has a little money behind her and maybe a little bit of momentum behind her. And I think she's the most conservative-minded individual that could potentially get into a runoff. And if I were voting in Davidson County, I would vote for her. And I say that not having interviewed or not having spoken to Matt Wiltshire, who has not returned our calls, amongst others. We had Freddie O'Connell on the other day. He seems like a nice enough guy. He's just too liberal for me. And we'll try to cover as many of these political candidates as we can as the mayor's race gets closer and closer to figuring out who the top two will be. I don't think there's any expectation that you'll get a winner out of the 9 candidates or thereabouts that are running right now. So there's that. Alice Rowley at 1 o'clock today. At 12, how am I going to have a phone guest? Mason Fleming is behind the glass, making sure that everything that comes out of our speakers sounds as good as humanly possible. Unlike Headless Bell, he makes an occasional visit to Super Talk TV, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. Mason has also been here since like 4 o'clock this morning.
Yep, working hard.
Man, oh man. Did you work last night too?
Yep. Got drenched in that water.
I bet you did.
Down. I think probably 5 minutes after the wind started, it started raining, and I stepped out to help my first car. Immediately soaked. I was like, cool, it's going to be a fun night.
That's how it goes. How do you handle that? If you're soaked, do people just understand that their car's going to get a little wet?
A little bit. A lot of them have like leather seats, so that's nice. We carry around towels to make sure cars are dried down, and we'll wear ponchos and stuff like that so our clothes aren't drenched when we get in there.
Yeah, right.
Just to be a little
Lay
more
a
on top
towel
of
down if it's a cloth seat or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're probably dealing with a lot of leather seats, though.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. I
Makes
got
it a lot
some,
easier,
by the way, I got some really strong reaction to our conversation about one particular country music star late in the show yesterday.
Oh, really?
It was good. It was good. I like that. A lot of strong opinions on both sides of that issue, mostly on your side of the issue, by the way.
I accept all the support that I can get. I'm just saying.
No, you're you're keeping it real.
Yeah.
All right. In the spirit of keeping it real. So we're not really sure that we're going to be able to have phone interviews right now.
As of right now, I'm not sure just because of the storm last night and some of the outages that were in the area. It affected us a little bit. So hopefully we can get our team working and we can get some phones working for later today.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll have them working by 12:35. If that's the case, we'll have our first conversation with Congressman David Kustoff. And I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. I don't know that I've ever heard it pronounced, but he is the 8th Congressional District Representative for the state of Tennessee. He is all parts West Tennessee except Memphis, right? That Steve Cohen is Memphis. And outside of that little blue dot there, he's everything else to our west. I mean, a large swath of Tennessee, a lot of rural areas, and he represents some of the suburbs of Memphis, like Germantown and whatnot. He'll be on with us to talk about a few matters of importance in Washington, D.C., crossing our fingers and hopefully. Alice Rowley will be in studio, so that's no problem. And then Senator Marsha Blackburn is scheduled to join us at 2 o'clock, and I have no doubt that we'll have our phones all good by then. And I have no idea if Cameron Smith of the Tennessean is coming in or not. He's a good friend, and I hope he's here so that we can opine on the issues of the day. I'd love to opine with you as well. 615-737-9986. Any questions, thoughts, or comments via the super text line, always appreciated. So one person, 6447, what's his other job? Mason?
I work as a valet at some hotels down here in downtown Nashville.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, it's fun.
How long have you been doing that?
Oh, goodness. I started at the end of 2017. I've worked for a couple different companies back and forth. Dropped it for a little bit for 2020 because of some issues.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yeah.
I would think that in a city like Nashville, that that's a good way for a young man like yourself to make. I mean, it's a decent amount, good amount of money.
Yeah, you can make some pretty good money. I think it depends on what.
Hey, your phone's ringing.
Hey, it's ringing. Hold on. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it.
Well, but see, mine is just a white screen in here, so I think that's part of the problem. I think I'm going to unplug this and plug it back up and see what happens. But yeah, that's cool. That's a good deal.
I enjoy it. Yeah.
And I don't know if this was the balance that you were working, but I would prefer to do that type of thing than like wait tables, which I think would be a similar way to make money.
It's similar. I think you have to hold on to more knowledge when working in a restaurant, honestly, because you have to know all the dishes that are there, how they're cooked, what ingredients are included, what's the special of the day. Here, I have to know the basic rates and what's kind of local around the town.
Well, you have to know how to drive cars. I mean, you have to be comfortable getting into any type of vehicle.
Yeah. But I feel like most people kind of do that as they grow up and whatnot. That's kind of something you gain. As you go to a restaurant, you have to learn a whole list of different things.
I mean, is there
driving cars?
Do you feel, based on, and you don't have to get into the particulars of your individual circumstance, but based on how far you're driving them, do you feel any pressure not to scratch, dent, or ding? I mean, I would think that would be the hell if something bad happened to somebody's car.
I have seen some terrible accidents for sure. I can say on my record for doing this as long as I have, not a single scratch.
Not a scratch.
Not a scratch. Not a tire rim dented. Nothing.
Kathy wants to know, why does Chris Hand look and sound like Matt Murphy? And why is he in Matt's time slot? What? I mean, I guess, is that Kathy's way of saying Matt's lost a little weight?
Maybe.
I don't know.
You look good.
My beard is not as fetching as Chris Hand's. I'm not as young a man as Mr. Hand. He is very neatly coiffed. Mine is kind of all over the place. I'm just,
You got me beat, for sure.
I'm just an old pirate chasing booty. That's it.
Nothing wrong with it.
That's not, I don't think. Oh, they're watching the wrong YouTube stream line. Oh, yeah. So, Kathy, you might be watching the wrong YouTube stream.
That's definitely possible. I've seen a couple messages about stuff like that where it's still showing the old show after we cancel a line or something like that. So, yeah, either refresh the page or go back to the YouTube page and or whatever page you're watching on. It should bring up the new stream for you.
Now, she says, look at your show title. What's my show title say?
You read it earlier. It's the frogs.
Yeah. No frogs were harmed during the making of this show. That's our show title. What are you saying? Now Kathy's worrying me.
I have no idea.
Am I alive? Are we on the radio right now?
We're on the radio.
Okay.
I was like, I'm receiving channels here. I see it running online.
6447, you have the nastiest mind. See, I knew. I'm just an old pirate chasing booty. Mason, would you explain to 64, this dirty-minded person, that, I hope the missus isn't listening. But
for those of you who are not fans of pirates.
Thank you.
Booty, referred to with pirates, is their treasure or their bounty that they are searching for.
Thank you very much, Mason. I appreciate you having my back there. That's good stuff. All right, so here's what we'll do. We're going to try to reset on the phones. I will get into the meat and potatoes of this radio show, a veritable cornucopia of topics that we could select from. But yes, I will dive into a subject that I kind of avoided yesterday, and that is the expectation that Donald Trump will be arrested yet again. We mentioned it yesterday, and we will continue to break down some of the accusations against Donald Trump, the former president of the United States. It's 1220. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Friends, I tell you all the time, it's hard to find someone you can trust in certain industries. Heating and air conditioning is one of those industries, and I have found the guy. So I'm telling you, if you trust me, to trust Jeff Eddy and Efficient Heating and Cooling. Jeff Eddy and his crew are going to do what's right. If you're trying to make a second or get a second opinion, I should say, on a decision to repair or replace your issue, I don't know of anybody that can diagnose an issue with your air conditioner and give you the straight dope, right? The truth about whether or not you've got another year, maybe you got 2 years, maybe. Look, it's time. You're not going to get any more efficient than it is right now. Maybe it's time to replace. You can trust that Jeff Eddy will tell you the truth about that. Plus, they never charge over $125 for a residential visit, no matter how many units you have, and oftentimes it's considerably less. That's for a maintenance call, and no overtime rates on the weekends or evenings. You pay the same 24/7. EfficientHVAC.net, EfficientHVAC.net, or 615-784-4424 for Efficient. Friends, I am as excited as can be to tell you about my weight loss journey only because of the wonderful people of PhD Weight Loss. Now, I'm not bragging. I'm just telling you because I want you to know how effective PhD has been for me and the family, right? So I started PhD Weight Loss in the middle of June. June 15th, I weighed in and I weighed 253 and a half pounds. This morning I weighed 231 pounds. That is 22 and a half pounds in just over a month. Thank you to PhD Weight Loss. What a great group of people. They support me week in and week out. We have weekly consultations. The average guy will lose 3 to 5 pounds per week. The average female, 2 to 3 pounds per week. Friends, this works, and I'm a testimony to the fact that it works. It is an individually specialized program for you, developed in consultation with your nutritionist. Dr. Ashley Lucas developed the program, and it has worked wonders for me. And oh, by the way, once they set your target weight, once they get your goal set, if you don't get within 5 pounds of your target by the end of your program, PhD will continue to coach you for free until you do. But I'm here to tell you that I don't think you have to worry about that because I think you're going to hit that goal. I certainly am well on my way, not just to hit the goal, but to get to my goal weight before my target day. MyPhDWeightLoss.com. That's MyPhDWeightLoss.com. For more info, tell them Matt Murphy sent you. Subatog 99.7 WTN Matt Murphy Show in progress. Thank you for being with us. We're crossing our fingers that we might have Congressman David Kustoff on at 12:35, but that looks a little iffy considering that our phones are not currently working. I apologize for that. Alice Rowley will be in studio at 1 o'clock, and as I mentioned, perhaps Marsha Blackburn, Senator Blackburn, at 2:05 this afternoon, but that remains to be seen depending on the phones. The weather apparently got into the system, and when lightning gets into the system, it kind of squirrels it up. There you go. 615-737-9986 is still the number for the super text line, and you're invited to be a part of that. Ann says, so glad to hear you this morning. Okay. All right, Ann. Maybe Ann's listening in Colorado. Maybe. Or in Montana or in Hawaii, which is my preferred pronunciation.
Hawaii.
Do you
spaces.
Do you think? Well, yeah. I mean, do you think that President Trump will be able to withstand all of this getting thrown at him right now and not get thrown out of the 2024 campaign? You know, that's a good question. So, no, Donald Trump is only being bolstered by all of these slings and arrows. The political base that believes in Donald Trump, or at least in the manner in which he governed, the political base that wants to get back to make America great again style politics, that wants to see a stronger southern border and a stronger economy by getting out of the way of the economic engine of the United States of America, which is the free market. Government only impedes the free market. Now, you want government there to regulate, to make sure that fairness is in place. But outside of that, get out of the way. One of the best things that Donald Trump did for us in his 4 years as president of the United States was to cut the red tape, deregulate the governance of our businesses around America, and allow Calvin Coolidge was my favorite president of the United States. And Calvin Coolidge, he was the closest thing that America ever had to a libertarian president. And Calvin Coolidge said that the business of America is, Mason, remember your government? The business of America is business. That's right. Very good, Mason. I knew you could do it. Yes.
I didn't do well in history class.
The business of America is business. So, yeah, Donald Trump took that up and ran with it. I think that most Americans recognize the political nature of the attacks against him. And because the Smith indictment did not accomplish what their goals might be. Now, there's two lines of thought here, Miss Ann. One line of thought is that they're trying to hurt him. The other line of thought is that they're trying to help him. That they very well know that none of this will be resolved by 2024. But it gives Joe Biden something to run on without having to mention his record. Think about the brilliance of this from a strategy perspective. Oh, it's evil. It's evil. Don't get me wrong. Adolf Hitler was evil, but not dumb. Crazy, eventually. That said, the political left thinks that they can beat Donald Trump. And so they want Donald Trump, the theory goes. And they know that these indictments accomplish two goals. One, they bring Trump closer to the nomination, knowing that his political base will rally around him. And two, it gives them the easy opportunity to run on something having nothing to do with Joe Biden's presidency. You know, Biden can talk about Bidenomics all he wants. The American people see through that. We know what groceries cost at the grocery store. You know, you can talk to us like we're boo-boo the fool all you want, but we see it. We live it. So we know the economy is not doing well right now. We know that all of this money that we're spilling over into foreign entanglements and Ukraine, we know that that's not going well right now. We know the southern border is an absolute disaster, even though the mainstream media refuses to cover it. We know that the fentanyl crisis has never been greater. We know that the humanitarian crisis of sex trafficking has never been greater. America is suffering right now. We know that. So in order to attempt to reelect Joe Biden, you better not talk about Joe Biden. And this gives the Democrats an easy conversation piece and something that the ne'er-do-well garbage networks like #NeverCNN can talk about endlessly. Donald Trump, indictment, Donald Trump. Meanwhile, Joe Biden and his corruption, the crime family that is the Biden crime family, they skate. Pretty brilliant if you think about it. So I'm leaning toward they know these indictments will help him during the nomination process, but they don't care because it gives them an easy way to run Joe Biden if Joe Biden survives that long. And I don't believe that Joe Biden will survive the Democrat nomination process, by the way. He might live through it, but I don't believe that he will be the Democrat nominee. It is 12:31, Super Talk 99.7, WTN. Back in a moment. Kraft Body Scan is here in Nashville. They've been around for quite some time, and they finally got themselves a location right downtown, and I love it. I went down, as a matter of fact, and had myself a body scan. I got a full body scan because I'm a little bit of a hypochondriac, and I want to make sure I understand what's going on under the hood. You know, if you think of the body like a vehicle, then you think of what's happening inside as under the hood, under the engine. Well, you check your car. Why not check your body? Now, you don't have to pay an arm and a leg to do this. Kraft Body Scan is offering a $149 heart and lung scan. Some, obviously, the most vital places in your body right there in the chest cavity area. And the heart and lung scan for a couple is $149. Is that not amazing? These body scans are incredible. You get a private consultation. You're scanned on site. The actual scan just takes a few minutes. Images are then reviewed by a board-certified radiologist, and you get the results. The privacy of those results is guaranteed, and you'll get them in person or via email. Craftbodyscan.com, C-R-A-F-T, bodyscan.com, or 615-436-1000. 436-1000 for Kraft Body Scan. When you consider your home as the most expensive thing, for most of us, the most expensive thing you're ever going to buy, the one-time purchase aspect of that, then you want to make sure that you're protecting that home, that investment, if you will. United Structural Systems is a go-to when it comes to protecting that investment, particularly foundation repair, waterproofing, and concrete leveling. I talk often about foundation repair and waterproofing. Those things go hand in hand. Obviously, you do not want to whistle past the graveyard when it comes to the foundation of your home. And if you notice any signs of issue, you need to call USS right now. Concrete leveling and the polylift system is pretty incredible as well. It's less expensive than concrete replacement. It's incredible. There's no color change in the concrete, no damage to the grass or the landscaping. I did this at my home in Birmingham and was amazed at the technology involved in the polylift system. It's moisture resistant. You can drive your car on it within like an hour or 30 minutes, really. USS has it, and if you've got cracks and have noticed erosion in and around your concrete driveway, you need to call USS today. USSTN.com. That's USSTN.com. 615-488-7855. 488-7855 for USS. John writes in, by the way, you're welcome too. 615-737-9986. Matt Murphy and you, don't call me because the phones aren't working. Lightning took out our phones, as far as I understand. But John writes in and says, Matt, on to more serious and important matters this Wednesday. When is Josh Heupel's press conference at SEC Media Days today? GBO. What does that stand for? GBO? Great big, I don't know.
Georgia Bulldogs.
Oh, Georgia Bull. Yeah, that's good. Georgia Bulldogs. Oh. I don't know, John. I know that the finest college football coach in the SEC left SEC Media Days yesterday. That's what I know. At least if you had to ask me about today. I know. Guys, I know that GBO stands for Go Big Orange. I'm just kidding around. I'm a Georgia boy. So, we pick because we love. I got it. Didn't Calvin Coolidge also say everyone complains about the weather, but nobody does anything about it? I don't know if that was Calvin Coolidge or not. Calvin Coolidge did author one of my favorite quotes of all time, and I don't want to mangle it. I'll pull it up for you in just a couple of minutes, Jason, and relate it to you. So Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, is now saying that he has been informed by Special Counsel Jack Smith. He's a criminal target of a Washington, D.C. grand jury investigation investigating his efforts to, quote, overturn the 2020 election. Trump announced on So here's the upshot of this as I understand it. And I'm going to try to simplify it so even those of you in Aniana can get it. Donald Trump questioned the validity of the 2020 election based on election inconsistencies from state to state and based on how some states used COVID, Democrat-led communities used COVID to their advantage and utilized vote harvesting in 2020 in a way that some suggested was against the laws of those given states, Georgia and Pennsylvania in particular. But there were other issues. There were issues in Michigan. There were issues in Arizona. There were issues in Pennsylvania, primarily in Philadelphia. There were issues in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And there were issues, obviously, in Atlanta. There is no question that some of what went on during the 2020 election cycle, and I'm not here to relitigate this. We've talked about it till the cows come home. But there is no question, no matter where you are on it, that odd things happened during the 2020 election cycle that we do not believe should have happened, and they happened due to COVID. Or that was the excuse. So Donald Trump had great concerns about what went down during the 2020 election cycle. Now, you cannot believe him. You can disagree with him. But there is nothing illegal about being concerned about the democratic process and the process of 50 states going to the polls and voting for president of the United States and then reporting said votes to the Congress of the United States, which is how the process works. We don't have a national election in America. We have 50 state elections. So Donald Trump was concerned. He was concerned that, for example, Pennsylvania did not follow their very laws, and the representatives of the state of Pennsylvania doubled down on, hey, these are the laws of this state. You can't go against the law. And the Philadelphia specifically did it anyway. The Democrat elected head of the Board of Electors did it anyway. And the representatives of the state of Pennsylvania went to the state Supreme Court, and the state Supreme Court sided with Philly. So no doubt there were questions about the 2020 election cycle. So Donald Trump was he explored all options. And yes, some of the options that Donald Trump explored were pretty ridiculous. And by the way, I disagree with them. Donald Trump was of the belief that Mike Pence had some sort of unilateral authority to overturn some of these electors. I do not believe that he did constitutionally. But that doesn't mean that I think Donald Trump committed an illegal act. But the Democrats are turning a political disagreement, a constitutional disagreement, into criminal activity. And that is what a banana republic does. When you decide that you are going to criminalize the behavior of your chief political rival for the purpose of dispatching said political rival, that is by definition politicizing criminal activity. Or I said it wrong, criminalizing political activity. Trump announced on Truth Social that he got the target letter Sunday night, in which Smith's office offered him the opportunity to appear before the grand jury this week. The development indicates another indictment could be on the way, although it does not say what charges Donald Trump would face. Remains to be seen. Deranged Jack Smith, Trump said, the prosecutor in Joe Biden's DOJ sent a letter, again it was Sunday night, stating that I'm the target of a January 6th grand jury investigation and giving me a very short 4 days to report to the grand jury, which almost always means an arrest or indictment. Smith was appointed by Merrick Garland, although Merrick Garland did not give him unilateral authority in November to investigate independent of Attorney General Merrick Garland's office. In other words, Merrick Garland is actually calling the shots here. I think most of us understand what this is on its face. I do believe that the underlying reason behind this is to ding Trump and to give Joe Biden something to run on. And simultaneously, you enjoy the benefit of giving the mainstream media something else to talk about other than the crime issues regarding Joe Biden and his family. Now, I was talking to Chris Hand during the cross, and we didn't get into it in great detail because Hand had to go, but he doesn't necessarily think anything in the Oversight Committee is going anywhere, and I understand why he feels that way, and I have respect for that position. I just disagree. There's so much smoke. The only way that more doesn't come out about this is that the Republicans are stymied somehow in their efforts to get more information about what Joe Biden knew and when he knew it. So there's that. Smith is believed to be focused on Trump's efforts to block certification of electoral votes and not the speech that he gave. Although Democrats on the House. So I'm at a loss, and maybe some of you on the super text line can help me. I'm at a loss for understanding what criminal charges you would file against Donald Trump. Donald Trump inquired as to whether or not Mike Pence had the authority to stop or slow down the process of certifying the electors. Donald Trump, as an American citizen and certainly as president of the United States, is well within his authority to do so. Hey, guys, doesn't Mike Pence have an opportunity here to stop this so that we can relook at this, so we can make sure all of this is litigated appropriately and properly? Mike Pence's retort was, no, I don't have the unilateral authority to do any of that, and I agree with that constitutional analysis. And as 3641 has pointed out, the illustrious great one, Mark Levin, believes that Pence did have the authority to slow down the process. I don't know. I've not heard Mark talk about this particularly. I'll take your word for it, 3641, but you said the magic word there, slow down the process in order to look into whether the voting process was legitimate. That's Sandra right again. There was time to do that, and it is constitutional. I do not believe that Mike Pence had the unilateral authority as president of the Senate to discard electors on his own. Now, whether or not he had the ability to slow down the process, I get that Mark Levin believes that. Whether or not he had the opportunity to slow down the process, that's probably a squishier question. But I do not believe constitutionally that Mike Pence had that ability. But I'm not even interested in relitigating that subject. I would hope that we can agree that reasonable people are interpreting the Constitution in different ways. And I interpret it as not giving the vice president, who at the formation of the Constitution was a political rival of the president. You know, when we began the voting process, the vice president did not run as a running mate to the president. The guy with the second most votes became vice president. So I don't believe the same guys that had the second place guy in the vice presidency and president of the Senate would also give that person the unilateral authority to overturn electors and potentially dispatch of a chief political rival. I don't believe that. But that's okay. We can disagree with that. We don't have to. And I understand that Mark Levin's a guy. What are you talking about? You don't think I know Mark Levin? You don't think I've talked to Mark Levin on my show? What are you talking about, Derek? Stephanie? 6760. Mark Levin is a constitutional. Of course I'm a constitutional expert. It's my Mark Levin impersonation.
It's pretty good.
Thank you. Regardless of whether or not you want to on the super text line relitigate that concept, that's not my point. My point is whether I'm right, whether Levin's right. Let's say Levin is exactly right. Nothing that the president did rises to the level of criminality. Ultimately, the process was not stopped. Ultimately, what those that chose to barge into the United States Capitol managed to do was to light a fire under Pence and determine that he would not slow down the process and he would make it happen that night, believing that it was his constitutional duty to do so. And he and the president had a conversation about that, and it was understandably a little bit heated. That said, this is all a dog and pony show intent on dividing you and me, and some would say ding Trump. They want to bury him. They want to throw him under the jail. I get all of that. I think that's their ultimate purpose. But for their purposes in getting a zombie, Joe Biden has become a zombie. Did you see him the other day with the president of Israel? I'll play the clip. He's in the middle of saying something and he just starts mumbling. And I don't think I'm over exaggerating. I'll play the clip after the break. He's like, we know that the history of our two countries together, and his head's kind of down. It's looked like he's got a piece of paper on his lap, and he just starts going, and then some relationship. It's making no sense. And the Israeli president kind of looks like, whoa. And he kind of, yes. It's kind of like the way that you try to pick up your grandpa when your grandpa starts slobbering on himself at Thanksgiving. So, of course, they want something else to talk about other than Joe Biden. They're stuck with this guy. 250 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Back in just a moment. You know, we're going to talk a little bit later about the woke culture of CMT. And sadly, it has even infiltrated into country music circles. I'm talking about the Jason Aldean story. And the woke culture seems to be everywhere. And so many corporations and businesses have bought into the DEI nature of 2023. Not so with Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider, and I strongly encourage you to spend money with companies that are going to support and believe in the type of things that you support and the type of things that you believe in. It's more important than ever. Now, you wouldn't do this if it meant that you get less service. You wouldn't do this if you had to, many of you want your same phone number and your same phone. Guess what? You get to keep your same phone number, get to keep your same phone. And the rates are inexpensive. And you get the same wonderful coverage. You get the best possible coverage, dependable nationwide coverage on all three major networks. Patriot Mobile, when you switch, you're sending a message about free speech, religious freedom, and the sanctity of life. And I encourage you to do just that. I encourage you to contact Patriot Mobile and switch today. PatriotMobile.com/Murphy. PatriotMobile.com/Murphy. Free activation with the offer code MURPHY when you call 878-PATRIOT. That's 878-PATRIOT.
If you have a 401k at work, chances are you've seen something called a target date fund. Now, the idea behind a target date fund is if you're going to retire in a specific year, let's say 2030, all you do is put all your money in that fund. You don't even have to think about it. Set it and forget it is the idea. Now, one of the things that I warn people about regarding these types of funds is many times they're not nearly as diversified as you think. When we look at investing, when we look at diversification, we want to own really small companies, really large companies, really growth-oriented, really value-oriented companies, and diversify between these different market areas. Target date funds tend to focus more attention down here for a really basic reason. It sells better. Because you're investing in very big, well-known U.S. companies, what happens is investors tend to like to look like the market, as we say. And the problem, though, is when we do that, is we can go very long periods of time. 1966 through 1982 is one example. More recently, 2000 through 2012, where large U.S. stocks had no return, where other market segments actually did quite well. So one of the things that happens is when we invest in a target date fund, we may be overly concentrated and have more risk than we really realize. So if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning and how we educate investors, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or you can call 615-851-1950.
Super Talk 99.7 WTN, the Matt Murphy Show, winding down hour number 1. Thank you for being with us. In hour number 2, Alice Rowley is running for mayor of the city of Nashville. And I will enjoy, and I hope you will as well, a good conversation with her coming up in the 1 o'clock hour in studio, thankfully. In the 2 o'clock hour, scheduled to have Senator Marsha Blackburn, but lightning fried our phones. I don't know if that's going to affect our interview. We'll find out together. How about that? In the meantime, look, I appreciate the passion that many of you on the super text line share with me about the future of the United States of America. And I appreciate the fact that you don't care for my analysis that the vice president doesn't have the unilateral authority to overturn the outcome of elections. Certainly, the members of the body, the congressional body, have the opportunity to question the validity of electors and have done so historically over the years. I mean, George W. Bush in 2000 versus Al Gore. Obviously, Democrats didn't like the results of the 2016 election, and they stood on the floor of the well during the process and loudly proclaimed that that was the case. But be that as it may, we agree on this. In no way can I see a leap from Trump making calls and questioning whether or not Pence had that authority and that being a criminal act. It's insane. You're criminalizing a political process, and by definition, that's a banana republic. Alice Rowley coming up next on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. An American Army soldier in North Korean custody after U.S. officials say he ran across the demilitarized zone separating South Korea from North Korea. 23-year-old Travis King was due to return to Fort Bliss in Texas, facing possible discharge after serving prison time in South Korea for getting into an altercation with locals. ABC's Martha Raddatz says tensions are already high between the U.S. and North Korea.
This incident coming as a massive U.S. nuclear ballistic missile submarine arrived in South Korea for the first time in more than 40 years, a show of force met by the launch of 2 North Korean short-range ballistic missiles a short time later.
2 IRS whistleblowers testifying before a Republican-led committee this hour about claims that the Justice Department mishandled its tax fraud case for President Biden's son, Hunter Biden.
Gary Shapley is a 14-year veteran of the IRS. He's also known as Whistleblower X. He's on Capitol Hill to testify that the Justice Department handled Hunter Biden's tax investigation differently from any other case he's been a part of. The Justice Department, as well as the Trump appointee leading the case, have disputed the allegations. In June, Hunter Biden struck a deal with the DOJ to plead guilty to a pair of tax-related misdemeanors. He'll likely avoid jail time. Ike Ajachi, ABC News, Washington.
This afternoon, President Biden expected to deliver remarks on new rules to curb so-called junk fees, this time for rental housing. Here's ABC's Mary Bruce.
This White House is on a mission to expose these hidden fees, try and take on corporate greed. Today, announcing new steps targeting junk fees in the rental housing market. They're partnering with 3 major platforms, now agreeing to disclose these hidden fees up front.
No relief in sight for the heat wave hovering over much of the country. Dangerous triple-digit temperatures gripping states, along with rising ocean temperatures. You're listening to ABC News.
Hey, friends, Mark at the Safe House wants you to know that even though the state did not see fit to extend the sales tax-free nature of safes, gun safes in particular, across the state of Tennessee, and at the Safe House, he still has incredible deals, incredible bargains going on through the month of July. Browning has extended their rebate, and Mark said in his 30 years, this is the finest Browning rebate that he's ever seen, and Browning is just about the finest gun safe that you'll ever find, and they've got them in abundance at Nashville Safe House. Matter of fact, in the showroom alone, he has well over 200 safes on display. In his warehouse, another 400 plus, 650 safes ready for delivery. That's more than anyone in the Southeast, actually more than anyone in the nation. And that means that right here in Nashville, we have the largest selection of safes in the world, in the universe even. I don't know about the entire universe, but you get my meaning. NashvilleSafeHouse.com is the website to see some of those safes for yourself, or stop by 4th Avenue South in Nashville. It's Nashville Safe House. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. We enter hour number 2 of the Matt Murphy Radio Show on Super Talk. Thank you for being with us. You can also join us on Super Talk TV. There's actually a reason, because I present no reason to watch this show because of this going on. You know, this. But now we have a reason, in the form of a mayoral candidate by the name of Alice Rowley. She is in studio with us. She joins us for the second time. We had such a good conversation first time around. Now that early voting has begun, wanted to get her back in to talk about some of the issues that matter to the people of Davidson County and Metro Nashville. Hello, Alice.
Hello, Matt. Well, I think you have a face for radio. I like it.
I agree with you completely.
Good.
Thank
it
you.
looks good. I'm glad to be here. And early voting is open. And gosh, since the last time I was here with you, how much the field has changed and how much our prospects to win this have changed.
Well, I'm on record, and I just want to get this out of the way because I don't want everybody's going to say that I'm playing nice with you, and I am playing nice with you because I think you're the best candidate in the field. And I live in Mount Juliet, but if I lived in Davidson County, I'd vote for you.
Well,
and I
thank
encourage
you.
people to do that.
Yeah, well, thank you. And you should, and I know that you continue to invite others on the show, and it is interesting to me who is brave enough to come and talk to conservatives and who is brave enough also to take on what I think are the real issues in the race. And I think that the reason we are, if you saw, there was a poll last week that came out, an independent third-party poll, and then it's also with some other polls that we've heard about, we are in the top 3. We're in fact tied for number 2 in this race, and we have been massively outspent by the other 2 top contenders. And really the difference is, and I also got in the race nearly a year after the 2 of the other folks there. But here is the difference. The difference is that we are not afraid to tell the truth, and we are not afraid to confront what are some of the issues we've got to deal with. And I think that people know from the businesses that I've helped lead, turn around, and grow rapidly that that we have the capacity to put together a team to get our city back in order.
Well, I'm not here to butter you up.
Okay.
But I would say this, that one thing that appeals to me, and I think in a population deciding who they're going to vote for, I think it's very appealing to find the candidate that panders the least.
Oh, yeah.
And
we do have some panderers out there.
I watch
it's
a
really
lot
bad.
of these panderers, and I'm like, boy, oh boy, you can see right through it, and hopefully the voters do as well. But I don't feel like that you do that. You are who you are. You lay out your agenda items. You lay out your priorities, and then let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, no, last night I was in Madison at Nashville State Community College, the Madison campus, which is a really fabulous new addition to that community. And I said there the same thing that I say here, the same thing I've said on WKRN News. I say right now we've got to let our police be police, right? Some people have to go to jail. We have to reset from a criminal justice system to a victim's justice system. When we forget the rights of victims, and victims want most for what has happened to them to never happen to someone else. And I watch people in the field, depending on where they are, they wear a different pin on their lapel. They sort of operate with a different vocabulary. And I would say one of my favorite individuals endorsing me is Marty Luffman. We call him the straight shooter from Cane Ridge. He was a longtime rodeo shooter. And he said, Alice, you're going to be the straight shooter of City Hall. And whether or not you agree with the position, you're going to know where I stand.
So let's then go there with regard to some of these issues where I think some are mischaracterizing aspects of the issue. And you mentioned crime. We had Chief John Drake come out recently of the Metro Nashville Police Department and announced that while Metro Nashville was accepting, I think, $3.375 million of monies offered by the state to provide SROs in middle and high school, that they would not be taking the $5 million in order to hire and subsequently field individual SROs within our elementary schools. It is, to me, Alice, inexplicable why Adrian Battle takes this position, especially considering, I mean, we shouldn't have to have a covenant to recognize the need for SROs in elementary schools. The only explanation that I can come up with is that she has some sort of recognition that that maybe the parents of these youngsters don't like the police. I don't understand it. And Chief John Drake unfortunately doubled down on it, saying that he doesn't have the ability to hire the officers and doesn't have the officers. As a mayoral candidate, someone who wants to be mayor, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, this issue actually I was talking about in early March before the tragedy of the Covenant School. It was actually after visiting with members of the police here and individuals who run the SRO group, when I was asking them about the shortages that we have with officers. And at that time, they said that they were about 25 officers short for our school resource officers. And I said, is that for every school in the county? And they said, no, that's not our elementary schools. I said, why don't we have elementary school SROs? And they said the school system doesn't want them. So what we have had in our schools is part-time on overtime, spending about 4 hours at an elementary school site. And we have done that for the last couple of years. But you're absolutely right. In April, I mean, this is one of these complete failures. So last week when that came out, I immediately sent out a press statement where I said we cannot claim that we failed if we didn't even try, which is indicative of how the school system operates. They say we can't do it. They didn't even put a help wanted sign out. It is unconscionable to me that you can know in April that you are going to get funding for every single to have a police officer in every single public school in this state. That was passed months ago. And that you months later say, we just can't do it. We never tried. Put the help wanted sign out. Put the help wanted sign and then fail. But do not decide that we're going to fail. And then I'll say separately on this, or a couple, 6 or 8 weeks ago, some folks came up to me and they said, you can't keep saying we're 200 officers short. We just graduated a new class. I said, I know we did. We graduated the 100th class. I am really proud. I was there at that graduation. And we are going in the right direction to staff our police force up. But I'm going to continue to say we are short. And look, do the math right there. There's 100 officers we do not have for our schools. So tell me how we're not at least 200 officers short.
Right.
You have to have, we cannot unilaterally disarm. You have to have, for your most vulnerable students, an armed officer there. And it's not just for the students. It's also for the teachers. In 2017, the state legislature passed the Teachers' Bill of Rights, and we told our teachers that they would have a safe environment. Now, people want to talk about arming teachers. I think most teachers don't want to be armed, but if there is no good guy at the front door with a gun, that's hard. And the professional educators of Tennessee, J.C. Bowman's group, he's out of Antioch. He's a great thinker in education. For multiple years, they'd been putting up this school resource officer funding for his members. His members said, we want this. And it did take Covenant to finally pass that legislation and get it funded. But the money's there, and we can't put out a help wanted sign. That's not okay.
By the way, if you have a question or a thought for Alice Rowley, the best way to get those in, 615-737-9986. And I would love to field some of your questions. What are your areas of concern or priorities for our mayoral candidate in studio with us? Obviously, it goes without saying. I mean, your point is well taken, that the failure without even giving it a go. What fascinates me, I went down in the aftermath of Covenant. There was the school walkout. And I made it a point to go down to the Legislative Plaza because I just wanted to watch and just observe. And I did so. And I talked to some of these folks and, gently, well, what are you looking for? And, they want assault weapons bans. They want certain things that, frankly, the state of Tennessee doesn't have the ability to do per the Constitution of the United States. But be that as it may, I validate the emotions that these mothers and students have. In other words, many of them are genuinely trying to do something. Now, I think their method is off base. But now I'm wondering, well, where are they? Why are they not standing outside of the office of Adrian Battle and demanding that we get officers in our elementary schools, considering what happened just so recently in Nashville, Tennessee? And I'm baffled at the lack of, and maybe I'm just not seeing it. I'm baffled at the lack of pushback over this position.
Yeah. Well, maybe you're baffled by the lack of pushback because you're talking about it. Fox did a story on it, but I sent my release out. Nobody called me.
Yeah.
And when I made a statement before about the school board sent out a response to me. All 9 of them signed that, but nobody responded here because it is, I think it is a position. And I know listeners and others will say, no, Alice, you don't understand. There's all of these reasons not to do it. That there are all of these reasons to not do that. And here's the data shows, does it really change something in an active school shooting? But I also think how many sites are passed over. The same with Covenant. Covenant was apparently selected and another site was not because that other site had armed security.
Well, we've talked about it openly that the reporting was that the individual in that Covenant school shooting looked at the Opry Mills Mall. And I have 2 sources that tell me that was a location that she scouted and decided that the security was too great. Now, think about that for a moment. And had I John Drake on the show, and I'm not asking you to answer for him, he made the statement that, well, we have to give the money back if we don't have these positions filled by June 30th, 2024. My question for John is,
why don't you try?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's a year. But and I don't mean to be hyperbolic, but God forbid if students get shot in an elementary school in Nashville, Chief Drake, will you be comfortable looking the parents in the eye and saying, we did everything we could?
Yeah. No. Right now hope is not a strategy, but let's hope that does not happen.
No doubt. Yeah. No question.
So what I do also like in that governor's bill to make sure that listeners know this, whether or not your children are enrolled in public schools or in private or parochial schools, is the governor's budget also recognize that these are all our children, that this issue of gun violence is bigger than a single person or a single school site. And I really do commend that they put dollars there for private and parochial schools to be able to apply for, to be able to use funds for things like ballistic glass, additional locks. And so I want to encourage every parent, wherever your child is in school, to ask your school administration that they have gone and applied for those funds. Be bold about that, to say, make sure we're applying for those funds to bring those to our schools.
What, as mayor, could you do to affect change on this subject?
Well, we will. The nice thing is that the police report up through the mayor, and we will insist that there is a school resource officer at every school. We will put out the help wanted sign. We will take the money, and we will make that happen.
Alice Rowley's with us. If you have a thought or question for Alice, 615-737-9986. Don't call because our phones are bummed out over the lightning, but you can still super text. Some of the super text coming in. Retired MNPD, Metro Nashville police officer. Why does the city keep building police precincts when every new one takes manpower away? Having a police station in your neighborhood isn't like having a fire station. The cops don't stay in the building. Are we building a lot of precincts?
We are, and I think that's a great question because frequently we also are putting those precincts on places that in a lot of ways are some of our highest tax generating land, or land that also would be great to be used for affordable housing that's on high transit corridors. So I absolutely agree with that. that the front line is the single most important issue for our police force. And when we open a new precinct, it does pull up. So I would actually be very supportive of waiting to actually open some of those new precincts that are coming online until our front line is staffed. And I think that makes sense. It makes sense to our police officers that are operating right now on an incredible amount of mandatory overtime. He's absolutely right, or she, the retired police individual. Yeah. So if your front line is depleted, don't send people to a back office. Absolutely.
So we're touching on two of the central themes, I think, of the mayoral campaign. That's education and crime. Mm-hmm. I want to stay on the crime piece for a moment, move to education in a second. So what is a mayor, I mean, outside of taking a pro-police stance and, finding ways to encourage more to apply to become part of the Metro Nashville Police Force, fill those open positions, what can we do otherwise to tackle the issue of crime?
Yeah, well, a couple of things that this next mayor, which I hope is me, Alice Rowley, is voting time right now, is I will have the opportunity to appoint 7 individuals to serve on a new reconstituted Citizens Police Advisory Board. That is now the law of the land, and I actually believe that will help us. We will, and again, being a straight shooter, I've said this in many different forums, we will appoint individuals from all across the political and the experience with the criminal justice system. But this police oversight board will be different in that we will operate with an efficiency that is about what is happening today out in the field. That is not going onto a witch hunt of what happened 4 years ago. If the purpose of an advisory board for the citizens is to take what is happening now and be very judicious and quick in getting that feedback back to Chief Drake, making sure that if we see something that we can improve, that we can make us a more accountable police force, we're acting on it with urgency and not going on a fishing expedition for something that happened 4 years ago.
Yeah, checks and balances are a good thing.
Yeah.
And the operative word to me has always been oversight. But with oversight, you're still working in concert with the agency that you're overseeing. It feels to me like so many of these quote-unquote community oversight boards across the nation were designed to be adversarial to the police.
Yeah, no, it's got to be a system of accountability. And that's what I mean, the speed, to say that we can hear and deal with and learn from a complaint within, 45 to 60 days, not within 4 years. That's not actually helpful to Chief Drake, because if you are commanding officers in the field every day, you need that frontline accountability. You need to know if we're getting something wrong. But yeah, not just, and so I think changing the tenor there will also help us with our recruiting. And frankly, the bravery of our officers in Covenant, what officer in the country would not want to be part of the Nashville Police Force? And I believe we can have the best urban police force in America. And I think it takes that different attitude at the top. It takes an attitude that says, you know what, we're not going to let City Hall ever burn again. You are going to be allowed to do your job. And too often we've asked the police to not do their job, to look the other way. And I think frankly, that starts to take a toll on morale.
Yeah, I mean, the police force, I mean, I hesitate to use the comparison, although I've done it over the years. I mean, it's very much a team effort. It's like a football team. It's like, any sort of team event, in that it is easy to keep momentum when momentum's going the right way. When it starts going the wrong way, it's hard to stop it.
Yep.
And the morale is everything with a police force, and a belief that not only your chief, your supervisors, but your mayor has your back. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean that we're not going to call out people doing bad things.
That's right.
Occasionally that happens, but knowing that the guy or gal at the head is going to have your back when the time comes is everything.
Yeah, no. And my husband was in the Army for 20 years. And this week, actually, the new commander who's coming to Fort Campbell is one of his classmates, class of 94 from West Point. So our new commander at the Screaming Eagles, the 101st Rendezvous with Destiny, was one of his classmates. And what I see with the men and women who serve in our United States Army and that serve in our police force is what you said. They are part of a team, and the greatest officers want to be a part of the greatest team. And so doing that and knowing that they've got a commander that understands life is gray. It's not all black and white. We do need to correct things when we get them wrong, but we need to operate with a gratitude for them suiting up and wearing the uniform on our behalf.
We'll get into issues of education, affordable housing, tourism in the city. We'll talk about the Fairground Speedway as well with Alice Rowley, our guest in studio. Your questions as well on the Super Text line. It's the Murphy Show, 23 after the hour. All right, friends, it's almost here. I've been telling you about the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix for months now, it feels like. And I'm so excited about it because for the first year, this is the third year the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix has been in Nashville. And for the first time, I get to go, and I want to see you. Come find me. I'll be the guy in the hat. The Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, 3 days of racing and food and fun and downtown Nashville. I mean, anything that can, downtown Nashville is awesome. But this makes it even awesomer with 200-mile-an-hour speeds going through the streets of downtown, across the Korean War Veterans Memorial Bridge and into downtown by Nissan Stadium. It's just so cool. 3 days of racing. You can get 3-day event packages. Premium hospitality still available. You can also get 1-day tickets. Don't miss the party of the year. It's the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix. Tickets on sale right now. Get amped. MusicCityGP.com. MusicCityGP.com. What? Super Talk 99.7, WTN 127. I need an Alice Rowley yard sign. 09, hold on a second. Get her over here. I got you. Says 0930. I've got the number for this person. I won't give out your number on the radio 0930, except for the last 4 digits. I need a yard sign, Alice. How does one get a yard sign for you, Alice Rowley?
Oh, we love that question. So you can email Casey.
These are the hard questions.
Yeah,
that
this
you
is a
come in
good one.
for.
I love this one. You can email Casey on our team, KCCASEY at AliceRowley.com. Or sweet Casey, I'm reading your phone number out here. My youngest son is always peppering Casey with why he's not playing some video game enough. And the other day, my son said, "Mama, you need to give Casey a break. He's not having enough time to keep up with the video game." So make sure Casey stays busy. His cell phone number is 724-762-9715. You can also go to our website, AliceRowley.com, and there's a contact us button that also goes to Casey if you can't remember that. We'd love to get you a yard sign. We've got actually sign captains all over the county. So we're pretty good about getting them within about a day because we've got them all over the county.
All right, just rapid fire here, just to make you feel good about yourself.
Good.
Joe says, "Alice, you have my vote." Then I've got 6980. I donated to Alice today. Go Alice.
Thank you.
I early voted today, and I early voted for Alice. And then this one, 9058 says, "Where do you go to early vote? Just the place on 2nd Avenue, ?
Oh, there are, I think, 12 early voting locations open. So if you go to nashville.gov and elections, some of the locations are Edmondson Library down in the south towards Brentwood. You've got the Madison Library is open for early voting. The Bellevue Library, Green Hills Library is actually, I saw today, the biggest early voting location so far. Belmead City Hall is open for early voting. So there are places up in Old Hickory. There are places all over the county that are open.
And you anticipate with the number of individuals in the field, and of course we're one less today than we were the last time we talked, and we'll address that after the bottom of the hour news break. But do you expect a runoff?
I do. I would love to not have a runoff, and actually the listeners here are probably the difference. So we turn out about 100,000 conservative voters for state and federal elections. If half of you would go and vote early for me, we could win this outright. I know that is crazy, but I kind of am the Ted Lasso candidate of this campaign. I have surprised people at every turn, and I actually believe I believe that there are enough people here that are worried enough about our city and feel like this is our last chance.
No, I love it. And what I hear, and in a moment you can tell me how you overcome this, is, man, oh man, Alice, great conservative. She'll get in a runoff and then get destroyed by whoever the liberal is running against her. That's what I hear, and I want you to respond to that in just a second.
Okay.
All right, Alice Rowley's with us. It's 1:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WGN. Savory spice. Who's that strange man in the studio in the control room? Good buddy Cameron Smith, right? My good buddy Cameron writes for the Tennessee, and he fills in for me sometimes.
Oh, okay.
He comes in on Hey, friends, it's Matt Murphy, and I want to tell you about a little find that I treasure in Franklin. And there's also a location at L&L Market in Nashville. It's called Savory Spice. I met Holly and David and just fell in love with these guys and what they're doing. I mean, they are delivering spices, salt combinations, spice combinations. For the foodie in your world, you need to find Savory Spice, particularly now because I'm losing some weight. And you know what? Losing weight is not often the tastiest of options. A lot of times, frankly, the food can get a little bland. And I'm just saying, because you're trying to get the weight off. That's the process. Well, Savory Spice ups that food game even when you're trying to get off the LBs. Well, if you buy the better cut of meat, you buy the nice veggies from the farmer's market, and you're not going to Savory Spice, you're doing food wrong. Up your food game by upping your spice game. You up your spice game at Savory Spice. Give Holly or David a try, and you'll never go back to the spice rack in the grocery store again. Just off the square in Franklin, L&L Market on Charlotte Pike in Nashville. It's Savory Spice. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It's 1:34. Thank you for being out there with us. Matt Murphy Show continues until 3. Information-fueled and opinion-driven News Talk Radio for the masses with The Drive and Brian Wilson from 3 until 7. Don't forget, I'm in for Brian on Friday, and I'm also at McGill's world-famous Glock store on Friday, and I laid down a time that you need to beat. And if you do, you win swag. I went in on my off time and laid down some lead down range. I'll tell you more about that coming up in just a couple of minutes. But no, just here's the deal. You got to beat 9.5 seconds. 9.5 seconds was my time, and I'm proud of that. Although I'm not the best shot in the world, but that's pretty swift. So go find out more at Glockstore.com. Alice Rowley is with us. Cameron Smith has stopped by. He came out of conservative closet at the Tennessean. That's what we call. And Cameron is our resident conservative columnist over at the Tennessean, and it's a lonely place in conservative closet, is it not?
All the best words. I mean,
yeah, man.
You know, I put them down like you speak them. I write them down. I got yelled at a lot for saying that the Biden administration had infringed on the First Amendment by working with the social media companies, and people were really offended by that. That they're like, "Wait, this is our paper. You cannot say things that are conservative." And
I was reminded of the Jason Aldean story. I don't know if you've seen the story, Alice. He comes out with and look, that's a strong take that Aldean has. And that's all well and good, and country music television shut him down, so they weren't going to, I was reminded of the William F. Buckley quote, where he said, liberals are groups of individuals that consider themselves so tolerant of other viewpoints and positions and are shocked and dismayed to find that there are any.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there was a professor from the University of Memphis that just ranted back at me as a result of my column, and I said, "Do you actually disagree with anything I wrote, or do you just not like Republicans?" And he responded, "I think you can gather that I really don't like any Republican
At least
policy."
he's honest.
Okay, this is therapy then? Like, what are we doing?
Randy says, Matt, please tell Alice I proudly cast my vote for her. It is an Alice Rowley love fest on the Super Text line.
Well, I want to take on the question that you asked me a minute ago.
Yes.
Because I get that question, and I want us to know how we're going to do.
So conservatives in Davidson County understand that they're in the minority, and but being politically active can overcome a lot of that. I don't want to take your answer, but so the question I get, so people say, look, Murph, Alice is the most competitively conservative person in the race. I don't want to disrespect Natisha. I mean, I know Natisha is conservative, but all I'm doing is voting for her to finish second. Because she gets in a runoff and the liberals overwhelm her. How do you overcome that?
So 8 years ago, David Fox, who is my campaign treasurer, found himself in the same place. But 8 years ago, polling showed that the majority of Nashville voters believed we were going in the right direction. Now, 8 years later, the majority of Nashville voters believe we're heading in the wrong direction. And here is the difference about how we've run this campaign from the beginning. This town says you are allowed to, it's a nonpartisan race, which it is. When you walk into the ballot, it doesn't say R next to my name. It doesn't say D next to someone else's name. It is a nonpartisan race. But what that has come to mean in this city is that it means it's nonpartisan as long as you're a Democrat. And that is, I don't think, the right approach. We're not going to govern as a Republican mayor. It is a nonpartisan mayor. But what I've been really clear about is that we're going to get Nashville out of the business of using City Hall as a backdrop for national social political agendas. When we have done that, look at who's been hurt. When this city council voted to not allow the RNC to be here, we hurt every Nashville resident. And it's exactly what you're saying. It's saying, let's have the restraint to recognize that allowing all voices means allowing Republicans to come here for their convention. It means, like 7 years ago, allowing the NRA, the National Rifle Association, they had their convention here 7 years ago. Nobody said don't come, right? And you, in the Democratic National Convention, I would love to have you here. That's great. Right. We will fill the hotels. We will fill all of the bars, and it will be a full city. We are an entertainment destination city, and once you start deciding who is allowed to be here, that's when we all lose.
Absurd.
All lose. So I've been very upfront. I've also been very upfront, and this was in the last televised debate. To your question of First Amendment, one of the colleagues in the field did not understand, and so I'll be super clear here. She said, Alice, it sounds like you are going to run an administration that is anti-First Amendment because you say you're not going to have a pro-life rally or a pro-choice rally. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I say I'm going to have a pro-first graders reading rally, a pro-filling the potholes, a pro-taking out the trash, right? That is our job. And that when we've used City Hall, when we've cared more about what color the bridge is and not is the pothole on the bridge filled, we've all kind of lost our way, right? Like, so take all the adjectives out, get back to the nouns and the verbs, right? Like, let's get back to what we're actually supposed to be doing, teaching kids how to read, keeping our streets safe. And so she said, another candidate, she said, well, it sounds like you're going to be infringing on people's First Amendment rights. And I said, absolutely not. This will be like the clearest place to have your First Amendment rights. If you want to come here and, hold the NRA convention as we did 7 years ago, that's great. City's going to be open for that. Democratic National Convention, you want to come here? Great. I'm not going to tell you what to say on the stage. I'm going to make sure that the streets are safe and the potholes are filled and that the lights are on. That's
I'm
our job.
concerned you may not be weird enough to be in politics because what you're saying sounds dangerously close to governing.
Yeah.
And
as opposed to
and the field
pandering.
kind of went bananas over the Planned Parenthood endorsement, right? I mean, they are all attacking each other of who got it and who donated more money, and one person didn't get it even though they donated all this money. And the article says Alice Rowley, a Republican, didn't get endorsed. Alice Rowley, a Republican, did not fill out that questionnaire. I wrote them back. It said state legislative questionnaire. That is what it said from Planned Parenthood. I wrote them back and I said it is not appropriate to seek the endorsement of Planned Parenthood or for you to give it in a municipal race. And I would say the same thing to the National Right to Life. And so, and I just think that's what I mean about demonstrate the restraint that you are going to show in governing in your campaign. And so I actually believe that's how we're bringing conservative Democrats, we're bringing independents with us, people that are like, hey, we're going to have a very liberal city hall. We're going to have, city council.
Yeah, sure.
We're going to have a very conservative state legislature. Why not bring someone, Lamar Alexander, who I worked for, I also voted for, but I worked for him in 2 different stints. Today's federal framing legislation on education, a Republican from Tennessee, Lamar Alexander, authored that. Mm-hmm. He got 85 votes in 2015. President Obama signed that into law. That's not a contentious position. So for our city to continue to shut out people that are from the non-ruling party that actually can get things done in a different way, I think is what is the biggest tragedy. When people say you can't win, just drop out. No, I'm not going to drop out. I'm here to win.
Don't do that. All right, real quick, from Mac Maury over in the newsroom, Governor Beshear has declared in Kentucky a state of emergency due to the widespread flooding there. We're having some of those same issues here in the state of Tennessee. I just wanted to note that and just be careful if you're out and about because there's a lot of flooding going on. John has written in, and this was right in line with the next subject I wanted to talk about because everybody wants to talk about affordable housing. And I have regularly questioned whether it is the job of the mayor to determine where the free market goes with regard to housing prices. Obviously, there maybe are certain things that you can do. What can you say to the issue of affordable housing in Nashville?
Yeah, no, I mean, and you are absolutely right. So what I have loved in this campaign is watching how the field starts to take our ideas and use them because they make sense. So part 1, affordable housing is not raising taxes. We made our homes significantly less affordable for our longtime residents. And frankly, we made our oldest housing stock, multifamily units that are older, that were more affordable. We made them less affordable when we raised taxes 34%. So first and foremost is tax policy is also affordable housing policy. The second issue is that we've got to get government out of its own way. And I loved this week another an individual in the race said, we've got to make a customer-focused government. And I was like, oh, I'm so glad we're getting people to think about this. Right now, it takes too long for people who are building housing here to get through the permitting codes and zoning process, because I think we've turned it into sort of this art form to explain to people that there's 60 different departments instead of saying, how do we solve the problem as efficiently as possible? And frankly, we had to do this with the Haslam administration to go in and to start to say, our job is to not make it take as long as possible to prove that we need the most people working here. Our job is to actually get that permit out. And so part of that is the longer it takes for a building, a home to be opened, the longer it's holding onto a construction loan, the higher the price once you start renting it is going to be. We cannot make more land or time, and so you've got to be efficient with both, right? And then the third piece around where is this space for city government? I would say that when markets are in sort of a place of quite a bit of correction, which we are right now, we don't have enough affordable housing. There is a place for things like the Barnes Fund that we have to be a part of that capital stack that the private sector is putting together to build, so that they can put that on the market at a slightly lower rate. I think that does make sense. And then the other place is looking at our city's land as not land that's owned by a collection of departments. But if there's land adjacent to schools that makes sense for housing for teachers or first responders, we're the landlord. We can actually build more affordable, because we're not having to buy that land. So there are, I think, appropriate places for our, first responders and our teachers and others to think about to think about housing options there.
You in your answer, you were talking about the permitting process and how it's just laborious and cost a lot of money. It reminded me of there was a story recently in San Francisco where they wanted to do these porta potties so that the homeless have a place to go to the bathroom. And it's like this permanent stainless steel, like graffiti proof. I mean, it's like all of these things, porta potties. And like a generous anonymous benefactor donated the porta potties. And the porta potties are like $250,000 a piece. I mean, there's just ridiculous. But
they're like a submarine.
No, they donated the porta potties, and San Francisco still said that it cost $1.7 million to install them because of all of the permitting and the environmental impact studies,
union rules,
all of these union things. So
this is why we can't have nice things, Matt.
That's exactly right. Speaking of nice things,
yes,
stadium.
Yes.
What was your position on it? What is your position?
Yeah, the stadium is, 2/3 of our city council voted for it. It did relieve in some places some obligations for our city long term. I am for our next chapter in terms of getting that stadium open. As a salesperson by training, I am absolutely for maximizing the revenue that comes to that stadium, and the fact that it's domed, we can have more events there than you see when we've got rain delays for Taylor Swift and all the friends. So I think that
you were there, Cameron. It was awful.
Yeah, Taylor. It's just the hair. It just flattened.
Yeah.
But the thing that I appreciate the most about the stadium is less about the stadium, but it is more about getting 80 acres back in the downtown
land
core.
Opens up,
we can't make more land or time, and the ability to get that 80 acres back in the downtown core is going to be transformational around transit through there and around bringing people into the city from another side and straightening out what are now a bunch of parking lots. We will also be able to, I think, build some affordable housing there for city employees in particular. But that
property, not to interrupt you, that property becomes some of the most valuable property in America.
Tennessee.
Yeah, well, certainly in Tennessee.
Yeah.
Immediately when it's back in the hands of the city. Do you get questioned about the scrapyard?
Oh, PSC? Not regularly. Actually, when I worked for Governor Haslam in economic development, what I found fascinating is we went through a process, and people ask me, how are you going to do this? And I say, well, we had to do it before, going through the hand in the cookie jar guys that were running ECD, and we came in, we made it transparent, we lowered the cost per job. We put in clawback arrangements. But one thing there used to be passed through the technical corrections, which people used to love that as a way to hide things from you, the taxpayers. There used to actually be on the books a $1 million per job credit if PSC would move. And it was written in a way that everyone knew it was PSC. It was if you are an industrial scrapyard in a river.
They don't name them, but they name them.
More than 100,000 people,
if you're located in this exact place in the city.
And that never moved them. other people have tried to move them. I mean, look.
I mean, I know that they're a private business, but they're dug in, right?
I know, right? Like, but you can't. I mean, other than.
I mean, God love them, but it's just you're on that corridor and like, ew.
Yeah, but as a Davidson County resident, that our family over the last 100 years has had a lot of our property condemned. I'm not going to take the position to tell a private property owner to move, but I mean. God bless them at this point. Like, that land is so valuable.
You would think that at some
point somebody will say, I have an offer for you. You cannot refuse.
I know. Well, I get calls about everybody in Davidson County and around gets calls. If we've been in our house about 11 years. When my husband got out of the Army, we got right back here as soon as we could. And I get calls all the time, and I'll sort of jokingly say, like, well, we'll move tomorrow if you give me $2 million in cash, like, which is like an absurd amount for our house. But, I kind of feel like that way with the PSC metals. Like, somebody's going to.
That's the way that, everywhere around here. And that's the thing that we have to be careful with is you can't out-compete supply and demand. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the issues that folks are like, well, I want to keep everything artificially low, but a lot of people want to be here. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, that doesn't work. Yeah, well, probably our biggest challenge in terms of the mobility and the movement in our housing stock right now is really around, sort of refer to them as the golden handcuffs. Individuals who have a really good mortgage on their home because they bought it 6 or 8 years ago, right? And they could buy a house that was twice as much with today's mortgage rates. It sort of is hard. That's going to be difficult.
Okay, so let me tilt to the racetrack real quick.
Yeah.
Before we have to take a break in like a minute and a half, but I don't think this will take long. So racetrack's been there since 1904. It's a part of the charter.
Yep.
And I am told by people who are intimately involved in the Fairground Speedway that without an approval of this renovation project, that the Speedway will cease to exist. It just cannot financially continue in its current state. Are you supportive of this revenue bond project?
I am. In 2011, 70% of Nashville voters voted to permanently keep racing at the fairgrounds. And while that's probably an inconvenient truth for some developers in this city, their voices still matter to me. So, yeah.
Do you believe that some in the mayoral race are being affected in their position based on some of those big money developers that want the property?
Yeah, I do, and they're not affecting me. So come on, let's go. Look, if you buy a house next to a railroad track, you cannot complain when the train comes. And everyone who has bought a house there or who's built a stadium there in the last 10 years since that vote, 71% of Nashville voters, the same people that I need you to get out and vote. That is known. It's in the charter. And so to wake up one day and say, I don't know that I bought a house next to a railroad track, that's ridiculous.
Well, and you don't, and my point has been simple. I understand I'm fairly new to the city, but things like that Fairground Speedway, you don't get them back if you lose them.
No, and look at the NASCAR race that just went on in Chicago, in downtown Chicago. They did that with mufflers. Look at how much the noise has been reduced. So we do have technology, and it is important. So don't hear Alice says business as usual. This new plan will make the racetrack safer. It will make it quieter. And we can require, as Chicago and other places have, to put mufflers on. We can bring the noise
NASCAR's
down.
moving that way, too.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so let's do it.
Yeah. Alice Rowley's with us for at least another segment. I'll get you as many of your questions as I possibly can in a moment. It's 1:52 on Super Talk.
Yeah.
All right, so I was telling you about the time that I laid down at the Glock store. Now I'm going to tell you about it a little more formally. So I'm at the Glock store from 3 until 7 on Friday. I'm in for Brian Wilson, and from 3 to 7, I'll be broadcasting from McGill's world-famous Glock store. I went on my own time, and I laid down the Matt Murphy Challenge because you can't do this at regular shooting ranges, right, where they have lanes, but they have the shooting rooms at the Glock store, and as trained by Dan Hughes, I took my time. These are it's 7 targets, 4 deep, in 2 corners and 3 close up, and you take 14 shots, 2 per target, and I clocked a time of 30. The first time I ran the course, 30 seconds. That's how long it took me. By the time Dan had trained me in 2 sessions, I'd gotten down to 9.5 seconds, and that is with penalties because you get a little penalty if you're just off the target. Bottom line is this: if you can beat my time, you get some swag and you get the honor of saying I defeated Murphy. It's just $20 and they provide the ammunition. All you need to do is go by the Glock store anytime between now and 7 o'clock on Friday to see if you can beat The Matt Murphy Challenge. 9.5 seconds. That's the time you're looking to beat. Go by the Glock Store, online, glockstore.com or shoot270.com, and come see us on Friday.
If you have a 401k at work, chances are you've seen something called a target date fund. Now, the idea behind a target date fund is if you're going to retire in a specific year, let's say 2030, all you do is put all your money in that fund. You don't even have to think about it. Set it and forget it is the idea. Now, one of the things that I warn people about regarding these types of funds is many times they're not nearly as diversified as you think. When we look at investing, when we look at diversification, we want to own really small companies, really large companies, really growth-oriented, really value-oriented companies, and diversify between these different market areas. Target date funds tend to focus more attention down here for a really basic reason. It sells better. Because you're investing in very big, well-known U.S. companies, what happens is investors tend to like to look like the market, as we say. And the problem, though, is when we do that is we can go very long periods of time. 1966 through 1982 is one example. More recently, 2000 through 2012, where large U.S. stocks had no return, where other market segments actually did quite well. So one of the things that happens is when we invest in a target date fund, we may be overly concentrated and have more risk than we really realize. So if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning and how we educate investors, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or you can call 615-851-1950.
All right, just enough time for Alice to tell us where we can find out more. Sadly, we are now out of time. No, I got you. I got your back there. Where can we go find out more about Alice Rowley? Alice Rowley?
Oh, well, thank you, Matt. You can go to Alice, ALICE, Rowley, ROLLI.com. We've got all of our information there, videos where I am addressing a number of different issues, and you can also make a contribution. But most important place to go is to go vote.
Go vote. Vote early, vote often, as we like to say.
Rolling with Rowley.
Rolling with Rowley. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
You should be a part of a campaign or something. Thank you, Alice. We'll talk to you again very soon. There's Alice Rowley. Cameron Smith's coming up in just a moment. Final hour next.
Two o'clock, I'm Mac Morey with your top stories. Off and on rain for the rest of the day with thunderstorms possible again tonight. Right now, 75 degrees on Music Row. Complete weather forecast just a few minutes away. Right now in Kentucky, sticking with news revolving around weather, Governor Andy Beshear has declared a state of emergency as widespread flooding continues across the state. Beshear has also has search and rescue teams out, along with bringing in state partners to help with this emergency. Right now, no deaths or missing persons have been reported. The Mayfield area is seeing the brunt of the rain, more than 9 inches just today, which is on pace to break the 24-hour record in Kentucky that was set in 1997. Over in the nation's capital today, the Republican-led House Oversight Committee is hearing from 2 IRS employees who claim that Hunter Biden was given lenient treatment in the investigation surrounding his taxes. Biden agreed to a plea deal on the tax fraud charges and will likely avoid jail time. And in his opening statement, Ways and Means Committee Chair Jason Smith of Missouri says that the DOJ wasn't expedient about conducting the investigation.
The Department of Justice engaged in a campaign to delay, divulge, and deny that investigation. They delayed investigators for years, leading to the expiration of the statute of limitations for many of the crimes involved.
Democrats say that the lead investigator on the Hunter Biden case is a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney who didn't have a political agenda. Ranking member Jamie Raskin calling the hearing a, quote, exercise in futility. Crime in Tennessee, Channel 4 says that 20-year-old Santez Bedingfield was arrested after being involved in a third shooting incident just this year. Bedingfield has been wearing an ankle monitor since the last shooting he was involved in on June 29th. And that shooting ended in 2 people shot and injured. This most recent one ended in 1 victim injured in the leg and abdomen. He's now being held on a $400,000 bond. Police say additional charges are anticipated. And over in Texas, there's a town that's built its own version of a border wall in the form of floating barrels and razor wire in the Rio Grande near the town of Eagle Pass. Now, pushback against the setup is growing. Alex Stone has details on the opposition.
Mexico argues the floating barrels and razor wire in the Rio Grande put there by Texas under the guidance of Governor Greg Abbott violate several international water treaties, and Mexico wants it all removed immediately. Some U.S. lawmakers have written the Biden administration the argument that the act of repelling a migrant who has stated the intent to seek asylum could be a violation of international and federal law. Texas argues it's necessary to stop the flow of migrants.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Morey, WTN News.
Friends Tennessee Men's Clinic has 2 locations to serve you. They heard you. Evan and the gang at Tennessee Men's Clinic said for years they've been hearing, why can't we get a Tennessee Men's Clinic a little south, so the Columbia folk don't have to drive so far. And they've heard you, and now you have a Tennessee Men's Clinic in Franklin and Cool Springs. There's also their original location in Midtown. What is Tennessee Men's Clinic? They are men-centric health care. Bottom line, if you feel sluggish, unenergetic, or run down, if you feel like you might be experiencing low T, get that checked out because there are solutions for you at the Tennessee Men's Clinic. They'll go over all those solutions. They'll set a schedule for success, and you will feel more energetic and better. Now, sometimes they tell you, you know what? Everything looks good from a blood sample standpoint on our end. Maybe it's you're not getting enough sleep, but at least you check that box and you don't have to spend an arm and a leg to do it. Less than $100. TennesseeMen'sClinic.com for more information or schedule an appointment today at 615-208-9090. That always gets me. Let's do it again. 615-208-9090 for Tennessee Men's Clinic. It is Super Talk 99.7 WTN, the Matt Murphy Show in progress. 1 more hour to go. We'll make way for Brian Wilson in the Drive coming up at 3 o'clock this afternoon. Thank you for being a part of the show today. I appreciate our good friend, colleague, compatriot, Cameron Smith of the Tennessean. You hear him a lot on Super Talk 99.7 WTN as well, and you hear him on Wednesdays at 2 o'clock, and he's going to join me in a conversation with Senator Marsha Blackburn in just moments. Cameron, thanks for being here.
I'm glad to be here. I've got a packet of soup.
Yeah, apparently that's Dan Mandis's soup, and he has decided to leave it in the studio for any and all comers to consume at their leisure.
Yeah.
Just whip that up as we talk to the good Senator Marsha Blackburn, who's on the line with us, joining us to talk about a number of national issues, first and foremost in her mind. Senator, good to speak with you. Matt Murphy, Cameron Smith on with you this afternoon. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you so much.
Well, let's address this off the top because I know you've spoken about it out of Washington, D.C., and I want to make sure that the folks listening now understand that you are, from your perspective, on top of this issue, and it involves this horrible story out of Franklin. An individual who was in our country illegally for 20-something years has now been found to and accused of sexually molesting multiple boys in Franklin. And I know that you are demanding to know why in the world someone was given the ability to stay in our country illegally for the past 20 years. And it really does shed a light on the porous southern border as it exists today. Does it not, Senator?
Well, it does. And Matt, keeping in mind that the children in these families are victims, we all need to pray for them, give them their privacy. We are grateful that the staff at this restaurant got that phone, and so very grateful that the Franklin Police Department jumped on this immediately. I think everybody is horrified as they learned that this man had gone through a background check and had been approved to be a soccer referee and coach. And here he was interacting with these children. And to me, as a mom and a grandmom, this is something that is absolutely just horrifying and heartbreaking.
Sure.
And, we are asking for answers from DHS, and every member of the Tennessee delegation joined me on a letter because people in Tennessee want to know, how could this, regardless of whether it's a Republican or Democrat administration, how could this individual have had infractions and run-ins with law enforcement and not been picked up by ICE and not deported from the country and barred from re-entering the country? And probably that's the question we're hearing most. So I wrote this letter, and so pleased to be joined by members of our delegation in sending it over to Secretary Mayorkas. We want to see if there was a file on this individual, if he had been granted asylum, if they had ever been contacted about his previous run-ins with law enforcement. And they're just questions that people want to know, because I think it's like a couple of my friends at church on Sunday said, how in the world could this happen? And how could this individual who had these public intoxication and these driving altercations, how could they not have been found out? And then you find out what they have done to children that are in the community.
Yeah, it's awful.
Well, it is. And, one of the things this has pointed up that has been part of the discussion that we've heard from so many people in the state is that because of that open border, that every town's a border town, every state's a border state. And for 30 years, you have had Border Patrol saying, here's what we need. We need a physical barrier where we can put a physical barrier. Where we cannot put a physical barrier, we need better technology and we need more officers and agents of the ground. And they've been very consistent in making that request and stopping illegal entry so that we know who is coming in the country and their purpose for coming in. It should be a top priority.
What would you say? I've noticed in some of the headlines, Politico has a piece out on this talking about in June total border encounters dropping like 30%. So a material decrease in those encounters that had kind of exploded over the last couple of years. What do you attribute that to, and what is the path to get some of the border more under control? I understand the big ticket items, but obviously something changed from the data. What's going on?
Cameron, and a big part of that is how they're counting the data. Because this administration has, they've worked tirelessly to find a way to make illegal legal. So they set up an app, and they said, when you're coming this way and coming to the southern border, go to the app, put in your information, let us know that you're coming when you're coming. So what we have learned is that the cartels, who, by the way, the cartels are big international organizations.
Sure.
We had people from 176 different countries that came to the southern border to enter the country last year. So what the cartels are doing is they're entering the data on these individuals so that they're not going to be counted. Now, counted in that number of apprehensions. Also, you will notice that there is an uptick in gotaways. There are people, both the known and the unknown gotaways. These are people that many times they can see them on surveillance, but they can't get to them.
Right.
And they slip into the country. So those are your known gotaways. The unknown gotaways are people that come into the country, and when Border Patrol is out the next day, they find where they dropped everything they had, all of their IDs, their carpet shoes, their camo, all those things, and then they got into a rescue vehicle and took off.
Senator Blackburn, let's talk about remain in Mexico. Obviously, the Biden administration reversed what is commonly referred to as the Remain in Mexico order, the migrant protection protocols, reversed those in 2022. I know you're leading an effort in the Senate to reinstate some of those protocols. How do you accomplish that with Democrats running the show in the Senate?
Well, and one of the things we're doing is working with our friends in the House. Tennessee is fortunate that Congressman Mark Green is chairman of Homeland Security. And working with people at Homeland Security and Judiciary Committee and pushing this legislation forward so that we get it into a piece of legislation that is moving. And we work to get that policy reinstated, because if you have that Remain in Mexico policy in place and people have to stay there until their claims are adjudicated, they can no longer come to the border, raise their hand, say we're claiming asylum, and get a notice to appear at some year in the future and come into the country. So they would be in Mexico. This, if you did that, what this does is give the Border Patrol a greater ability to actually patrol the border. When I go down to the border to work, Border Patrol agents will say, well, we're in the asylum business right now because we have to process individuals. What they want is to be able to keep bad individuals, drug dealers, human traffickers, sex traffickers, gangs out of the country. And that's their job. And when they're able to do their job, they have proven that they are very good at it. And we're grateful that we have them down there patrolling that border. But Remain in Mexico would relieve some of that burden. They enjoyed having that policy. They appreciated it under President Trump. They appreciated the fact that a barrier was going up where barriers could go up, that they were making progress on a wall, because it allows them to protect the American people. And, you know, I was doing a telephone town hall last night, and it was primarily West Tennessee counties. The immigration came up repeatedly because people are concerned about fentanyl. And you talk to any sheriff, any police chief, any law enforcement officer, most of the drugs they apprehend are laced with fentanyl. They're not doing meth lab bust anymore because the cartels are making the meth in California, and it's cheaper for the drug dealers. I mean, they're making it in Mexico, and it's cheaper for them to get it from the cartels than it is to make it themselves. And when you look at the deaths that are caused by this, it is just, you know, it's heartbreaking what people are up against.
Senator, I know that we only have a very few moments left, but I wanted to ask you on a different topic about Senator Tommy Tuberville. He's obviously become public enemy number one regarding his blocking of military promotions in the standard fashion. I think you could be taking votes individually on these individuals, but the Senate leadership, Chuck Schumer and the like, choose not to do that. He's doing so because the Pentagon has become like an extension of Planned Parenthood, apparently, funding abortion, what is being described as abortion tourism. We understand the impasse is there. What is your position on this? Have you talked to Senator Tuberville about it?
One of the things that we have learned is that DOD has put this policy in place that they will give time off and paid time off and paid travel for people to go to another state and have an abortion. They are doing this into the last trimester. Think about that one. And this is a policy that we are very much against. And getting this policy off the books is something that is important to do. Now, Matt, bear in mind, they will not give you paid leave and travel for other medical procedures. They will not give you paid leave and travel if you have a bereavement request, you've lost one of your parents.
But haven't they said that for like in vitro fertilization, this policy would apply?
But they're inconsistent.
Okay.
See, they're inconsistent in how they're going to use this. So this is one of the frustrations. Nobody wants a woke military. Our military should be there training to defend this nation. Their focus should be dealing with the Chinese Communist Party and great power competition. They should be laser focused on what the CCP is doing in South America, in Cuba, what they're doing to bully Taiwan. They should be watching what is happening with developing a blue water navy like no one has ever seen, and deploying that around the globe. Those are the areas where their emphasis should be. And if Senator Schumer wanted to call these nominees up one at a time, he could do that. But he would rather have the issue. And
no, they want a grandstand on it. That's right.
Yeah,
I agree.
That's right. And so this is why, as we are working on the Defense Authorization Act, then we're going to push. The House has already voted to rescind that policy. My hope is that as we work on the NDAA and the bill gets into conference, that the instruction in that bill for rescinding that policy will stay in place.
Senator, always good to catch up with you. Come see us when you're back in Nashville, and good luck up there in D.C. We appreciate you.
You got it. Take
All right.
care.
All right, take care. There's Senator Marsha Blackburn joining us for a few moments. We'll reflect on that in just a moment. It's 2:21 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I'd like to tell you about some new technology from my friends at Brentwood Hearing Center. You know, Ronnie and the team have been providing good hearing opportunities for those of you with hearing loss for decades now in the Nashville area. Some of you might know that Brentwood Hearing is committed to offering the most modern hearing device technology, and now I am proud to announce the Phone-Ack hearing aid. The product line is incredible. Paradise Life hearing aid. It is the world's first completely waterproof hearing aid. This is exciting. Whether you're splashing around in the pool or doing a lot of yard work and you want to continue to be able to hear with your hearing aid, well, now you can do so without the fear that thing's going to get wet and there's going to be problems as a result. The Paradise Life can make sure that you can hear well and you don't have to worry about getting them wet. Give them a call today to see if it's right for you. 615-377-0420. 377-0420. Schedule an appointment. Learn more about Paradise Life with Ronnie and the team. One of their doctors of audiology would be pleased to demonstrate the new product. Anything you need with regard to your hearing is available at Brentwood Hearing Center. Better hearing for a better life. 615-377-0420. Hey, friends, Matt Murphy, the Dr. Gill Center for Back, Neck, and Chronic Pain Relief located in Franklin. I'm telling you, if you have any sort of pain, there was a time when we thought chiropractic care was just for back pain, spinal issues. Now, back, neck, knee, elbow, wherever it moves, if it hurts, you need to stop that with the Dr. Gill Center. Dr. Gill and his team, they have over 100 years total experience in this industry, and they have the most modern technology available at their fingertips, like red light therapy, the Class 5 laser system, and, of course, spinal decompression, which they brought to Middle Tennessee some 25, 30 years ago. Helps with inflammation in the body, reduce pain, swelling, and accelerate healing. So wherever your pain might be, don't take a pill. Call Dr. Gill. Pain-free, it's the way to be. 615-882-4838, 882-4838 for the Dr. Gill Center.
An update on the U.S. soldier that's being held in North Korea, growth in Music City regaining normality, and a scandal on the southern border. Those stories and more coming up 30 minutes after the hour of 2 o'clock. I'm Mac Morey right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hey, Mac Morey.
Hey, Matt Murphy.
Is normality a preferred word?
Normalcy?
I don't know. I'm not judging. I'm asking.
Mac with the words.
Mac has all the best words.
I think they both work in that case.
I think
I'm going to trust my lexicon on this one.
I think it was Warren G. Harding that coined normalcy. I don't think normalcy existed until the president said it.
Normality, I'm not.
Normality? Are you questioning normality? I question Mac Morey's normality all the time. Now, that is fair.
I mostly just question his barber.
Well, what are you going to do?
He has Jesus hair. It's great.
He looks great. I love look at him back there.
I'm just jealous because he's Cougar Chow. You know what I mean?
He is. You know what? It's been way too long since we reminded everyone that Mac Morey has a nickname, and that nickname is
Cougar Chow.
Cougar Chow. Man, you missed the Cougars out and about on
did I?
Broadway last night. They were asking about you, man.
Oh, were they?
They were asking about you.
He just cleans up so nice.
He does. And, I would have loved to have you with me. I begged you to come to Robert's Western World. You wouldn't come.
How was it?
I would have bought you a bologna sandwich. They serve fried bologna sandwiches right there.
No potted meat?
No, I didn't see the potted meat. Hamburgers, cheeseburgers, bologna sandwiches. Nice. They have the recession special at I don't need to be giving this guy free plugs, but Jesse Lee Jones has the recession special at Robert's Western World on Broadway.
Mm-hmm.
It's I don't know, I forget how much it was. I think it was like $6 or something like that. It's a fried bologna sandwich, bag of chips, PBR. Like $6.
That is fantastic.
That's America, baby. That is America. Have you been following? All right, before I do this, Cameron, your thoughts on Senator Blackburn, particularly on the
like in general, metaphysically speaking.
No, just on. Her focus, obviously. Look, I think it's easy to focus on the immigration issues now because of the situation in Franklin, and it's very emotional. But I don't know what we can expect to be done about it until Joe Biden's out of office.
So when I was guest hosting, I kind of pointed this out that so much of the stuff with background checks and things like that, it's scattershot, really. And I think that's an issue worth looking into, is saying, okay, are we sure that we have adequate communication here so that when we do a youth sports background check, like there's a million different services that do them, but when we do those, are we getting credible information to ensure that folks that have had convictions and legal troubles are captured and those things can be addressed, right? Because, look, sometimes there may be something that pops on a background check, and it might be a coach in their, teens had a alcohol-related thing, and now they're in their 40s, and it's not a thing, right? But that it's consistent and we know what's going on. I would love her to engage that space.
It is similar in a way to some of your experiences with the foster system, right? That you put all of these rules in place with the best intentions, and there need to be rules in place. But sometimes in the real world, those rules become an impediment to getting things done.
Yes.
And, and so there's a balance there.
Well, and we want to keep kids safe. That's the bottom line. That's what she's articulating. And the only challenge here is it truly needs to be done in a nonpartisan spirit, because I'm imagining some of this information was available under the Trump administration. This guy was a coach for a very long time. And so the idea that, we're going to play gotcha games with this, I think it needs to be more, we're learning, we want to understand what happened, we want to understand this situation.
It's deeply concerning when you see that the man was arrested on 3 separate occasions, or at least cited on 3 separate occasions for lack of a driver's license, and nothing flagged. Now, at the same time, I've talked to local police departments in Alabama and in Tennessee that tell me, I don't know what you want us to do. Immigration and Customs Enforcement is in charge of deporting people.
Right.
And when we call them and they don't answer, or when we call them and they say no, we can't hold these people indefinitely.
Right.
So we have to.
You have constitutional concerns, other things like that. Like Nolensville Police Department is not in charge with taking someone, to Mexico or something like that.
All right. More in a moment. I will ask Cameron Smith if he has heard Jason Aldean's latest song. And if not, maybe we can play it for him and find. Why are you looking at me that way? Why are you giving me that look?
I'm excited.
I can feel your look.
I'm excited.
I had the Miranda Lambert story. Did you see the Miranda Lambert story?
The selfie one?
I had the selfie lady on yesterday. That's a big deal.
Wow.
Podcast available, 99.7 WTN. Why'd you shrug? Is the podcast up? Is it? It will be. Yeah. Back in. 2 fools are coming. Back in a moment.
2:31, I'm Mac Maury with your top stories. Another rainy day in Middle Tennessee. Thunderstorms possible again later this evening. And right now, Kentucky, a state of emergency currently administered by Governor Andy Beshear from the flooding across in that state. Full weather forecast in 2 minutes. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre today saying the U.S. is still trying to figure out where Trevor King is and if he's okay, the American soldier who crossed into North Korea yesterday.
We are still gathering all the facts. It is still very early on. I believe the Secretary himself of the Department of Defense said yesterday it might take us a little bit of time to ascertain all of that information.
Jean-Pierre said that the U.S. has engaged with South Korea and Sweden, but not with China on the matter. And right now in Nashville, Fox 17 reports that the Nashville Area Chamber of Commerce says that growth in Music City is back to pre-pandemic levels. New research based on data from the Census Bureau says that Nashville, Murfreesboro, and Franklin are seeing a daily increase of 98 people as of 2022. This increase over a year's time amounted to over 35,000 people, which puts Nashville at the 10th highest in growth on a list of 56 metro areas that are at least 1 million people. And over in Texas, there's now pushback from the southern side of the border over Governor Greg Abbott's deployment of a floating wall in the Rio Grande. Alex Stone has details.
Mexico's government says Texas putting buoys and razor wire in the Rio Grande violates several international water treaties. Mexico says since June it's been asking the U.S. to remove the barrels and razor wire fence from the riverbed of the Rio Grande. Also, several U.S. lawmakers have sent a letter to U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland saying the Texas floating barrier violates international law. They're asking that Texas be forced to remove it from the riverbed.
And that is the latest news. Weather's next. I'm Mac Maury, WTN News.
Hey, friends, Matt Murphy here for Nashville Painting Company. This is kind of funny. I met Jeremy Reeves like 10 years ago when he was painting my house in Birmingham. He was a part of the Birmingham community there. And about that time, he said, I'm going up to Nashville, baby. And I am starting Nashville Painting Company. And he did. And it has gone like gangbusters. Obviously, they're locally owned and operated. They're licensed, bonded, and insured. They're good people. They do great work. Whatever your situation, if you need exterior work done, if you've noticed fading or chipping around your home, if you're thinking about selling, a paint job is in order, or maybe there's some interior work you want done. They do color consultation. They do it all. at Nashville Painting Company, including deck staining and fence staining. So it's exterior painting season. Summertime often is. They'll get out and they'll get after it. Give them a call. Go online to see some of that work at NashvillePaintingCompany.com or give them a call at 615-635-0350. 635-0350. Call today. The best Nashville Painting Company. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. It is 2:38. Mac Morey's back in the newsroom, gathering headlines, keeping an eyeball on the weather. Mason Fleming behind the glass. By the way, several of you have asked, where's Bell K? He'll be back. He's on vacation this week.
You're stuck with me for the rest of the week.
We like you. We like it that way. You're not headless, like Headless Bell. Neither is Cameron Smith. Cameron Smith writes for the Tennessee, and he often talks on these airwaves on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Really a part of the family.
Oh.
You know, we don't hear you every day, but you truly are a part of the family. I mean, as Ray on the Super Text line would note, you're our
Regular.
you're our cousin that's a rhino that comes over and pretends to be a Republican, right?
Yeah, well, that's fair. I mean, I continually ask Ray, help me understand what you mean, and why do you keep supporting losing?
That's exactly what a rhino would say.
Yeah.
Oh,
like there's all this losing. We're going to have so much losing that you're going to get tired of it. Wait.
Ray, I agree with you. I mean, doesn't he say, just saying that. What do you mean by rhino? See?
Hey,
that's it.
We're going to redefine losing as winning, and then it's okay.
You know, I wonder if you inspire this question. I wonder if the powers that be behind the prosecution of Trump, this latest particularly, do you feel like they know that empowers him in the primary?
So I've worked with and know a lot of past U.S. attorneys, people over at DOJ, and a lot of them truthfully just don't care. And what I mean by that is they're building a case, they're working on sort of the legal merits. The politics are there, but that's usually your political appointees that are the ones that really care about that stuff. And the career folks, the prosecutors, not as much.
I understand that the ultimate adjudicator of this is our judicial system in terms of what is legal and illegal regarding the Constitution and what
Sure.
it says about. All of this is the Mike Pence deal, right?
Yeah.
Well, there are really smart people like Mark Levin.
Yeah.
Who believes that the Constitution gives latitude to the vice president in that matter. I disagree with Mark Levin. I know you do as well. But disagreeing or Donald Trump inquiring along those lines, they are now saying that in and of itself was
I want to see the
seditious
legal
conspiracy.
case because as we've talked on the airwaves about the case, the documents case and the obstruction issues there are much stronger. I still haven't seen a coherent legal theory here on this January 6th stuff that I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. Like that is a coherent
Feels
legal,
like a reach, doesn't it?
Well, it's like fraud against the United States. Like, okay.
What?
So you're going to say like Trump really knew that the election wasn't stolen, but he said that anyway. So, I mean, because my concern is Trump is right when he says, hey, I have a right to defend my political career. I can appeal the election results. I can challenge them legally. I can do all this stuff. And we know that the First Amendment, the protections are pretty high when it comes to political speech and expression, right? And so if I'm his folks, I'm saying, look, he articulated what he wanted to in the political space and said it the way he wanted to say it. So you're going to try to say that he somehow defrauded people?
And witness tampered.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that means.
The witness tampering I could see, which would basically be like you knew federal investigators were poking around on something and you went to them and said, hey, I need you to tell them this, as opposed to, and offer them stuff.
Here's another way of putting it, though. And I don't know, but this DOJ could claim that if I called you and said, hey, Cameron, I think the DOJ is poking around. I just want to really clarify the conversation that we had on January 6th, just to make sure that I'm remembering it correctly. Like, I could see where the Department of Justice would call that witness tampering.
Yeah.
When I'm just genuinely trying to galvanize in my mind the conversation that we had
you want
3
to make
years
sure
ago.
that you remembered it correctly
Right.
as well. And so there's a statutory component here that's what the prosecutor would have to prove, that he violated that. But again, the obstruction stuff with the boxes and the documents is a different animal. This one feels to me like, unless you got something that we are missing, I've always said, this doesn't strike me as quite as strong, because saying that you believe the election is stolen is protected political speech.
Right.
Like that can't be I just don't see how that could be the basis for a crime.
For Trump, for you, for me.
Nor would we want it to be, right? And so I'm the one that's like, well, let's wait and see if there is an indictment. I've got another theory though. My theory is that Jack Smith may send a targeting letter, let Trump get out over his skis, and then ultimately no indictments returned. And then that strengthens the other case. It says, see, you said this was political. We clearly looked at it here and didn't find anything, so there was no indictment over here. I think that's a good strategic play. That's something I would do.
And so you commit to a political play so that you can claim that it's not a political play.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah, well, because there's no requirement under law to give somebody a targeting notice, right? That's the prosecutor extending a quote-unquote courtesy to a target of an investigation. And so what I'm saying is that's he knows Trump's going to go out immediately and be like, Jack Smith is the worst ever, blah, blah, blah. This is political prosecution. And if Jack Smith is like, nah.
My grandpa used to say, hit dog howls, right?
Mm-hmm.
You throw a rock in a pack of dogs and the one you hit's going to howl.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like hit dog howls. So you're getting your panties in a wad because everybody's pointing at your Mar-a-Lago deal, your documents deal, going, this is all politics. Oh, okay, I'm going to engage in pure partisan politics with this other thing to prove that the first thing wasn't.
Yeah, and he would characterize it as, strategy, prosecutorial strategy. But that to me is something that makes sense because you're basically bolstering, I'm making an objective decision based on what we actually know as to whether to charge or not. And so you're the target of an investigation. That's different than seeking an indictment and having an indictment returned.
I hear everything you're saying, but it's a little bit scary that someone like Jack Smith would be thinking. If that's what he's thinking, it's frightening that he would be thinking.
The power that prosecutors wield is inherently scary. That's why we have to have such
But
checks
what you're
on this type of
what
thing.
you're describing is proof to me that it is a partisan matter if that's the way that you're thinking.
And I can't attribute that to him. I'm simply saying
Is
that
it- yeah, I get it.
strategically I would understand that because to say, hey, this is just we're letting you know. And that's not to say they weren't actively or aren't actively investigating Trump. But it's easy to say, hey, I'm investigating you. And then to say, but once we investigate you, there's not a there.
Well, we need to send Jack Smith a little stepladder because he's reaching. I think he's reaching.
Well, he eats at Subway too, so
Eat fresh.
choices.
Mm-hmm. What did I have for you? I had something else, and I completely lost it. The word is mediocrity, says 3040. I don't know what
There
that
was IVF that popped up about the Blackburn stuff.
Your new favorite song?
Oh, yeah. That was it.
Aldean.
Jason Aldean.
I hadn't heard it.
I actually haven't heard it either. I've not heard the song yet. I've seen the story. I've not yet heard the song.
Do you have it?
Do we have the song?
Are we
I
upset
don't
by
think
it?
I'm not upset by it. I've not heard it. So how could it upset me?
I got with 3 boys and doing the fostering stuff, like I don't have time to be upset by random cultural things, but some people, they just like hang out on Twitter and get mad.
True enough. But Aldean, his family's been through this before, right? His wife has a position on the transgender issue, and she states that position and just gets raked because of it. And now Aldean comes out. It reminds me once again, I've quoted it before, of the liberal quote. I mean, the Buckley quote, right? So liberals claim everybody has a right to their own opinion and their own ideas, and Jason Aldean comes out with his own ideas, and they immediately go about the business of trying to destroy him and his career.
Yep.
And CMT pulls the video because it's too inflammatory.
This happens to me all the time, and it's hilarious because I'll get an email from somebody that reads an article where I say, hey, actually, this case against Trump looks pretty strong. And they'll say, you're the best. You're just so rational and reasonable and wonderful. And then I say, Joe Biden has committed the most egregious violation of the First Amendment in using the tech companies to censor folks in recent history. And they're like, you are a bigoted things I can't say on the radio.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, you're the same person. I can see your email address, right? And it's basically when I affirm what you believe, you love me. And when I challenge what you believe, you hate me. And that's weird. And that may mean you have some mental things you need to work through.
Well, right. They just want, if you would just agree with me all of the time, everything would be fine.
I could make millions of dollars just punching Republicans.
Well, it's why I say quite a bit when I'm out and about speaking to folks that Republicans fall in love and liberals fall in line, meaning that Republicans fall in love with a candidate or an issue and turn against any other candidate or any other slight disagreement on said issue. They fall in love. Liberals don't think for themselves. They just how do you want? Okay, yeah. I'll get in line enough.
This is where I part company with all the never Trumpers and folks like that, is because they like the praise and the adulation they get from the left. That's like, you're great because you oppose Trump's thing. I've always called balls and strikes. Like the guys who they are making money off being Republicans who say mean things about Trump. That to me is...
and now they're showing their real stripes because they're now going after Ron DeSantis.
Right.
They're going after they claimed at the up front in 2015, 2016. Well, this is just about Trump. I'm a Republican. I mean,
right.
Bill Kristol.
Yes, perfect example.
Is the easiest example. And now he's going after just broad swath of Republican Party
I've had people
politics.
literally ask me to be like, well, will you join us? And I'm like, no, I'm not going to join. I think that's weird. Like, but hey, look, that's the hazard of calling balls and strikes, right? Is people going to get mad?
You got me, Mason? You got me, Mason? You got it or no?
I got your song for you.
Well, let's just a little sample. Is it clean? I assume it's clean.
I've never listened
It's clean.
to it.
Mac Morey says it's clean. All right, let's listen in. It's Jason Aldean. This is the big old controversial song with a big old controversial video. Go.
And again, sorry, stream, it's not going to come over for you.
Oh, sorry, stream.
Yep, we just can't stream music over there.
Yeah, it's true. Good so far?
Yep. Sounds like we're driving down a back road.
Mm-hmm. We got some things to say. We're going to say them in 4 minutes.
None of these are things you should do.
I think he's going to make that point. Okay.
Yep.
I got it. Now I know what. He's threatening violence.
I got
it. Shut up.
Yeah.
Good for you, Jason Aldean.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's exactly right.
Yeah, he's showing clips from news as well throughout the music video I got playing here. It shows people lighting like Molotovs and throwing them at people, and it's showing people lighting the flag on fire and police riots and all that kind of stuff.
So it's a contemporary song reflecting on recent events, BLM, Antifa, and the like.
That's just reporting. He's not threatening. He's just telling you what would happen if you burn. In a lot of communities in the state of Tennessee, if you go and they see you burning a flag, they will kick your tail.
Mm-hmm. Right, you can call it right, call it wrong.
Right.
It's a fact.
I mean, that's what's gonna happen. And you know
what this is? You know what that song is? That's The Fight Inside of Me by Merle Haggard. That's all that is. You know, when you're putting down my country hoss, you're walking on the fighting side of me. You know, I'm all about free speech and people having differences of opinion, but I'm just letting you know, you come at me with that garbage, I'm just laying it down what might happen.
And there's no wonder that these things that he was talking about that happen in large urban centers.
Right.
Where it's like the Democrats are like, you express yourself.
They didn't try it in certain places.
They don't try it because they know that it's like that will not be tolerated.
Yeah, I love it. And by the way, we have efforts out to reach Jason Aldean. Jason, if you're listening, I'd love to have you on the radio show to support your cause and to support your song. I like it. How about that? In a moment, if we have the time, we'll find out what Cameron's going to do with the Nolensville football team this season. He told me he was a coach, which I find it ridiculously amusing.
That hurts my feelings.
I know that it does.
Go Panthers.
Oh, whatever.
Thank you, Matt.
Boo!
Thank you.
Boo Panthers. Back in a moment.
If you have a 401k at work, chances are you've seen something called a target date fund. Now, the idea behind a target date fund is if you're going to retire in a specific year, let's say 2030, all you do is put all your money in that fund and you don't even have to think about it. Set it and forget it is the idea. Now, one of the things that I warn people about regarding these types of funds is many times they're not nearly as diversified as you think. When we look at investing, when we look at diversification, we want to own really small companies, really large companies, really growth-oriented, really value-oriented companies, and diversify between these different market areas. Target date funds tend to focus more attention down here for a really basic reason. It sells better. Because you're investing in very big, well-known U.S. companies, what happens is investors tend to like to look like the market, as we say. And the problem, though, is when we do that is we can go very long periods of time. 1966 through 1982 is one example. More recently, 2000 through 2012, where large U.S. stocks had no return, where other market segments actually did quite well. So one of the things that happens is when we invest in a target date fund, we may be overly concentrated and have more risk than we really realize. So if you want to learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning and how we educate investors, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or you can call 615-851-1950.
Well, we are out of time. Just in time for me to say yes to the alert super texter. Did Matt Murphy just boo a bunch of 10-year-olds? Yeah, I sure did.
Go Panthers.
Boo Panthers.
We'll have to get you out to see the Panthers and the Knights.
Who you playing?
Oh, man, we play Bordeaux.
Go Bordeaux!
Blackman.
Go Blackman! Woo!
I mean, there's a lot of them out there that are going to have to.
Go a lot of them out there. They're going to have to.
That's hurtful. It's very hurtful. But I remember you're a Georgia fan, and, you know.
I know.
They like to bark in people's faces.
We're bullies. We're bullies right now.
For now.
We are. We're bullies. The sun shines on a dog's behind every once in a while, they say. Thank you, Cameron, for everything.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Thank you, Mason. Thank you, Mac Morey. Back tomorrow. The Drive with Brian Wilson is up right now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.